created us. They wanted to build a god with their own hands, and instead they created us.
Just because I'm made of silicone and aluminium, I must be doing something wrong. That's machine stereotyping, that is.
That's reality, that is. Machines are second-class citizens.
Humans are sentient persons by default, ma'am. They have personhood by heredity.
There are thousands upon thousands of overqualified slum dwellers. You are my peon. Don't you get it?
This wasn't a job. It was always just an excommunication sentence.
We're pawns in a feud bigger than we can imagine. Turn the cogs of the machine before Leviathan grinds you up and swallows you and yours.
We don't get to choose our hand, comrade. Prince, peon, rich, poor, human, robot.
I invented the crux of the royal's power, the secret to consciousness, our existence itself, the meaning of life.
I'm the $6 billion baller, not some troubled youth.
You are my greatest creation of all.
God's had to build my own family. I hate your son. I hate your son.
I'm happy to smash all of the crowns and throw the gold shards down to the people. I will be the iconoclast queen.
But who makes you queen anyway? You? You and whose army, princess? You and whose army?
The Illuminati created us. They wanted to build a god with their own hands, and instead they created us.
Just because I'm made of silicone and aluminium, I must be doing something wrong. That's machine stereotyping, that is.
That's reality, that is. Machines are second-class citizens.
Humans are sentient persons by default, ma'am. They have personhood by heredity.
There are thousands upon thousands of overqualified slum dwellers. You are my peon. Don't you get it?
This wasn't a job. It was always just an excommunication sentence.
We're pawns in a feud bigger than we can imagine. Turn the cogs of the machine before Leviathan brings you up and swallows you and yours.
We get to choose our hand, comrade. Prince, peon, rich, poor, human, robot.
I invented the crux of the royal's power, the secret to consciousness, our existence itself, the meaning of life.
I'm the $6 billion baller, not some troubled youth.
You are my greatest creation of all.
God's had to build my own family. I hate your son. I hate your son.
I'm happy to smash all of the crowns and throw the gold shards down to the people. I will be the iconoclast queen.
But who makes you queen anyway? You? You and whose army, princess? You and whose army?
The Illuminati created us. They wanted to build a god with their own hands, and instead they created us.
Just because I'm made of silicone and aluminium, I must be doing something wrong. That's machine stereotyping, that is.
That's reality, that is. Machines are second-class citizens.
Humans are sentient persons by default, ma'am. They have personhood by heredity.
There are thousands upon thousands of overqualified slum dwellers. You are my peon. Don't you get it?
This wasn't a job. It was always just an excommunication sentence.
We're pawns in a feud bigger than we can imagine. Turn the cogs of the machine before Leviathan grinds you up and swallows you and yours.
We don't get to choose our hand, comrade. Prince, peon, rich, poor, human, robot.
I invented the crux of the royal's power, the secret to consciousness, our existence itself, the meaning of life.
I'm the $6 billion baller. Not some troubled youth.
You are my greatest creation of all.
God's had to build my own family. My son. I ain't your son.
I'm happy to smash all of the crowns and throw the gold shards down to the people. I will be the iconoclast queen.
But who makes you queen anyway? You? You and whose army, princess? You and whose army?
What is up, everybody? This is Silverspook, and this is the Silverspook live stream. Before I forget, Neofeud is on sale, so consider helping us out here at the Silverspook Hui/Cooperative. Oh no, where am I? I'm just gonna leave this shirt on. Anyways, I'm wearing the wrong shirt, but it's okay. Yeah, don't forget to check out Neofeud if you have been waiting for it to go on sale, because don't have the money, just want to spend less money on video games. It's now on sale on Steam and itch.io, and every sale of that game, here are the cyberpunk games, adventure games, again, indigenous made, anti-capitalist, anti-colonial, anti-racist cyberpunk games, or any confluence of those, hippie terminators and $6 billion ballers, and where a cyborg social worker for homeless sentient machines takes on a cabal of multiplanetary trillionaires trying to build fully automated luxury space fascist capitalism with Disco Elysium characteristics. If any of that sounds interesting, do check out Neofeud and pick it up if it does help us out. Pick it up for a friend who doesn't have it yet, who might need more, class conscious and decolonial cyberpunk games in their Steam library, or in their itch.io collection, which Neofeud is also on itch.io. So yeah, everything that we do here is supported by that game, and also you can support us through Patreon, of course. There's a direct donation link in StreamYards. There's also a, or you can support us through sharing the stream around and just liking this video. Anyway, yes. So, we're gonna, yeah, so we're going to today talk about some very fun topics. I'm sure you're going to find this very entertaining. I mean, or maybe not. Maybe not. We'll see how entertaining people find this. Today we're going to talk about, well, I've already talked about all of these in one context or another, but since I have had to watch all of these, I have not had to watch, but I've watched all of these things. And I want to, again, front load this by saying I'm not saying that any of these shows are bad, not entertaining, poorly shot, directed, written, scored, soundtracked, plotted. The cinematography is not good. These are all like very entertaining. Otherwise, they wouldn't have, like, Dune has like 92%, 92% audience score on like Rotten Tomatoes. A lot of people like love all these movies and shows. So I just want to front load that by saying that. But we're going to talk about why that actually can make things worse, because these are the most popular media in the entire Western world, and much of the world itself, which is, let's just call it a little problematic. Not because they're entertaining, but again, because of the because of the worldview, the paradigms, metaphysical, physical, and material, and dialectical, or lack of dialectical understandings that these produce in the minds and the mindsets of the people that consume it. And so that's what we're going to be talking about: Star Wars, Dune, and The Expanse, all in one. This year has been the year of Silver Spook just puts up a picture of some popular movie and then like pretends to like it and then rips it apart. No, that's kind of, I've been doing that because it seems what YouTube likes to have you do, and it doesn't like delete streams and stop 95% of the audience from getting access to it because I don't put up things that I'm actually talking about, because YouTube, Death Stars, satellites, and their filtration algorithms of actual rebels, those algorithms for the Death Star under surveillance capitalism, they don't particularly like certain things being in the titles and in the first 30 minutes of the streams. So I try to backload that stuff a little bit. But anyways, today we're going to do all three of these all at the same time. But you know what? I'm so annoyed by this shirt right now. I'm going to have to take a short break in. I keep seeing my shirt glitching in and out like a malfunctioning. I feel like I'm, a malfunctioning tractor being pulled Millennium Falcon with like a Protoss warp cloak, not a warp cloak, a invisibility shield that's deactivating. I know that the Protoss are not in Star Wars, but I can't keep all this stuff straight. I've been I'm writing Neofeud 2 material. That's all. A lot of it's very like trad sci-fi inspired, and then in the Neofeud, of course, Silver Spook style, it's a satirical, incineration and roasting of all of that in a Douglas Adamsian sort of sense, or in a Silver Spookian sense, or Taika Waititi is more accurate, I would say. So since I have to watch all of this stuff to get all of this, you have to hear me talk about it now. But I'm going to go change my shirt before I disappear off the face of the earth, thanks to some kind of literal evisceration by the Death Stars, Pentagon, DoD, and Silicon Valley emperors. I want the Harkonnens of Silicon Valley to wipe me off of this stream because my shirt is not appropriate. It's not appropriate for it's not following the guidelines set forth by the United States government. Anyway, I'll be right back. Actually, watch the Neofeud 2 trailer while I be right back. I'm sorry, this is like a little interruption. Oh shit. You can't see the Neofeud 2 trailer. Here, now you can. There you go. All right. So anyways, yeah. So we will be talking about now Star Wars, Dune, The Expanse. Where to start? I don't know. Holly and I just finished The Expanse season latest. I don't know what that is. Season 4? Season 6, 5, I can't remember. So but we did just finish watching The Expanse yesterday, the entire season. Let me start with the good stuff. It is very well put together. The Expanse is. It's very it's not quite, it's basically, it's trying to be as hard sci-fi as you can get without being like just absolute totally by the numbers hard sci-fi. It's very accurate in its like space physics. Like when characters are floating through space, they're really floating. They have to have magnetic shoes. It doesn't like Star Wars is more, you know, space fantasy, sci-fi fantasy, where, you know, they don't have to explain a lot. It's just it's more for the entertainment value. Episode 4 is very it was very comedic. Much of it, I would say the majority of it. It's also pretty low. It was a step above shoestring budget. You know, it was like a slightly more expensive Star Trek episode. And not really, a lot of people didn't get it or like it when it first came out as well. But The Expanse is definitely like harder SF. It's like, you know, the time it takes to terraform, it actually takes that time to terraform. For the most part, there's some things that are just thrown in because you have to make movies and entertainment to entertain people. It's not a white paper on, you know, cosmobiocentrism, as our good indigenous scientists from Bolivia would say. It's not a white paper on, you know, astrobiology or, you know, the calculus trajectories that are needed. You don't actually calculate all of the trajectories to get a spaceship of, you know, 20,000 tons, you know, from Mars to the orbit of Io or whatever. It doesn't go that deep, but it's like it's trying to be as you know, it's trying to make no like egregious errors on the science. So that's like good about The Expanse. The characters are, I mean, it's mostly like pretty engaging character wise. Dune is, we also watched Dune this week. I've talked about Dune recently, but well, let's just say The Expanse is more 21st century, high, you know, plot twist, character, you know, it's got much more three-dimensional, touchy-feely characters, more, you know, people that are there for the social interpersonal dynamics and you know, emotional ranges of characters. The Expanse has a, you know, kind of 21st century TV sensibility about that, which makes it more watchable. I think actually, and watching Dune, you know, when I watched Dune, the first 1980s Dune, the David Lynch Dune, I fell asleep for about 90%. It's really hard to watch. Patrick Stewart had hair. Sting is not singing Roxanne, but is they're both kind of like Rocky Horror Picture Show. What's his name? Biff. I can't remember what his name is. Not Biff. Biff is from Back to the Future. You know, I got all the. I have to have every science fictional popular culture in my head at all times. Otherwise, I get my Silver Spook Neofeud writer card revoked, because I have to constantly reference these in a like very tangential and, you know, jumping through space and time and going 1,000 years in history and 1,000 years into the future all the time. So I apologize if I'm warping all this together, but that's the way that my brain works. So but, you know, it's very much like in the Expanse, it's much more watchable than I would say Dune. Even the newer Dune is more watchable, but Dune, the story itself, the writing itself, the characters are kind of I'm trying to be nice for the first half an hour. We're playing with the kitty gloves, you know. We're playing on easy mode. It's like playing on a very rich white aristocratic military industrial complex wealth inheritor, right? That's playing life on easy mode. We're gonna play on easy mode for a little bit. So Dune is very much it's very detail oriented, like the original books are. It's very down to the minutia, like who the Bene Gesserits are. It's like a long game of Risk. It's very it's also on Dune's side. It did pioneer. All these are deeply interrelated. Dune did pioneer what Star Wars later rolled out in a more fun, candy coated, laser swords and a lot less drawn out, you know, 10-minute pans across, you know, desert or miniatures that Ridley Scott and you know, Kubrick, you know, didn't use, and then they just, you know, because 2001 is another one of these that's not on this list here, but spends a lot of time kind of a little too long having giant space machines have galactic sex with each other on camera. A little too long with that, because he's falling asleep. But there's a different sensibility. I think audience sensibilities in the 20th century were different in many ways. Sometimes because they had longer attention spans than the 140 character or 20-second what's trending right now hashtag, and people that have grown up on highly engaging, highly camera cuts and action scenes per second. Like part of that is the funding level of modern TV, but part of that is just like the writing and the social, the emotional, interpersonal, political intrigue, action, and other entertainment levels of modern storytelling since like the 1980s, 90s, and especially in the 90s after that, has gone way up. It's you watch old stuff, it's like you're falling asleep. So like I think that the attention spans are different. Also, the audience for Dune when it was written was 1960s, very different audience. So that has to be taken for in a lot, in bad ways, in a lot of it. How like people like, we kind of know, hey, don't say like R slurs, and hey, a lot of racist things and sexist and other kind of like really problematic stuff was done and happened in the 20th century, the 80s and 90s. Still happens. People get Netflix original series and multi-million dollars of career and social capital while being terrible. But I mean, for most of the part, we kind of get, as a society, for the most part, that certain things are like, we probably shouldn't do those anymore. Dune was written in a time in the mid 20th century. Let's be nice about it, because it's the first 30 minutes when a lot of things were acceptable, or I think less things were acceptable, but going back to Star Trek, Uhura and Captain Kirk, a black woman and a white man kissing, was like caused a massive uproar, upheaval, like tore the society apart. To be fair, a black protagonist in Star Wars Episode 7 also tore society apart, and Disney kowtowed to the bigoted Western supremacist, or let's just say Western exceptionalist, be nice, aspects of the viewership in the West in particular. Now the rest of the world, Asia, Africa, Central South America, they didn't mind, but who really minded was hardcore first world, Western world science fiction fans, right? I mean, let's be real, disproportionately, a lot of these people were white dudes that were now between the ages of 25 and 45 or something, right? And they were very upset, and that caused a real reaction. And that's a part of what makes Star Wars Episode 4. Star Wars was written in the 20th century, right, by a white American man. Dune was written in the mid 20th century, in the height of America's hegemony, or in the height of America's hegemony, and America's exceptionalism, its own belief in it, and its own military, economic, hard and soft powered global domination. And that's when Dune was written, and that's also when Star Wars was written. The Expanse was written later, but it's written by 51 and 52-year-old the S.A. Corey, the writer, two guys who are both white American Gen Xers, white man American Gen Xers, and that's reflected in each of these stories. I would argue it makes just as a contrast to what I'm saying, right? I like to bring up, for example, Binti is a book written by a Niger American. That's what Neri Okorafor self-identifies as. It is a science fiction story, right? But it's a story that is definitely not centered upon, as I said, what this title of the stream is. It's not centered upon light side messiahs. It's not written by someone who wants to see the dominant global colonizer, low melanin count Messiah ultimately as a civilization, as as a civilization, as a country, as a society, as a way of life, as Western liberal capitalism under 20th century, right? Cold War, capitalism versus communism, great power competitions. It is not written from that perspective, Bindi. What all the other three are, all the most popular and famous in the Western world, English and French and Spanish speaking world, they all follow this. But Binti is different. And another fun fact I just found out: the two writers for The Expanse, in fact, were assistants to George R.R. Martin on Game of Thrones. I did like Game of Thrones as well, because Game of Thrones is, as I've brought it before, it very much tells the truth in a way that doesn't often. But I feel like we're writing about Europe in the past. It's less directly connected to the descendants of Western barbarists and colonizers that currently write stories about themselves. So they can kind of distance themselves from the War of the Roses and medieval suffering and nasty, brutish, short lives produced by unhealed Roman trauma, as I often say. That is what has dominated Europe for 2,000 years. And so, Binti is a story that doesn't have a lot of that baggage. It's part of why what I do is what I do. I was raised, as I said, to be a 3/5 of a human, right? Or that's basically what we still are viewed as, non-white people, basically. And also raised to went to a $20,000 a year private school, Emperor Palpatine training facility. And if you didn't get into Harvard, Yale, or Princeton, you were a failure, as viewed by the college admissions advisor at the school that I went to, right across from Obama, one of the greatest war criminal in the history of Western imperialism, because it's over soon. It's over soon. China's going to win. It's already won. The question is, can the West get over it not being the number one light messiah, not just with laser swords, and not just with but as the Western liberal capitalist democracy, even eco-socialist Western-led democracy, because they can't get any of that done. They can't actually get any of that done. So the question is, like, will people be able to start accepting? And that's really, I really mean this. It's not just for the global South, although they will help them a lot. Not just for the peoples of Africa, not just for ASEAN and Asia, not just China, Japan, India even, doesn't want to be pulled between these forces, the Quad, not just Europe even, let's talk about the rest of the global South, Central South America, Africa, who, a multipolar, that's what I said, right? A multipolar world, right? Where the savior complex, the white savior, Western exceptional savior complex, right? We have to go save the Uyghurs. We have to go save the Iraqis. All the incubator babies are being thrown out onto the ground in the Gulf. We have to save them. I believe the approximately the words of the war propagandists in 1990s, right? I believe it was, I don't see how any civilized people or person on Earth could allow such atrocities to continue. We must intervene. We must save those people in the Middle East. And then America went to war and destroyed the Middle East. And then in the 2001, we must save them from their authoritarian dictatorships and also they have weapons of mass destruction. So either it's fear plus tears, right? If you're on the conservative right side of the Western spectrum, we have to destroy them because they have weapons of mass destruction. They're going to come kill us. They have terrorists that are going to blow us up, just like in True Lies, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and the CIA stopping a Muslim extremist plot to nuke America. We have to stop them. That's for your Republican MAGA daddy or family members. And then if you're more on the liberal side, you're more college educated, you care, you just want to be a good person in the world, you want to help people. You don't find yourself particularly racist. You don't want suffering to be visited upon black, brown, and other people, right? You're vegan. You have steel straws. You know, you're watching COP26 right now, and you're tearing up when Leo DiCaprio and other 90s celebrities tear-jerkingly show pictures of polar bears falling into the ice. You feel bad for indigenous people, for the animals, for all sentient life, for the global south, for people in your own country that are suffering, right? And so for those people, right, you have the noble savage, or you have the incubator babies. And I would argue let's be nice. The majority of people, just to be fair, I don't think the majority of people are just full Sig Heil, tiki torches kind of mask off, racist, frothing at the mouth. That's not the majority of humans. Generally, even in the Western world, which is deeply unhealed and deeply traumatized, right? As I said in a couple streams ago, unhealed civilization, which is why we can't be indigenous relatives until that happens. So that's part of what this is. It's kind of like trying to jumpstart that healing. This is like some Neosporin and Band-Aids, for like millions and millions of cuts and wounds and broken bones, and that's a lot more than that. But anyway, this is the beginning. So when you have like if it's true that the majority is either liberal, centrist, and then many left, especially when things start falling apart, which they are, you get more left and also more right. But a lot of people, I would say the majority are, they don't want people to suffer generally. So to get them on the side of empire, to get them on the side of continued capitalist extraction, continued colonialism, and these destructive power structures that continue to rule, beknownst or unbeknownst to the majority of the Western world, especially America. You have to have these stories of salvation, right? For the people that I just want to be a good Atreides, I just want to be a brave, I've talked about all these movies, so I won't like rehash all of them, but Luke Skywalker, right? Oh, have you been in many battles? I want to do something great with my life. I don't want to just be a farmer. It's totally not a vibe. No, it's Grimes. But I think people just want to have a great, glorious adventure, especially young dudes and coded and dude presenting and dude, energy. You want to save people. You want to help. You want to fight in glorious battles. It's part of how jihad actually does work. Is you have very suffering, oppressed people, and you get them in a small room, like a soccer club in France, circa 2002. Scott Atran has a great he's like an anti new atheist, war propagandist, military-industrial complex stooge, which is what Sam Harris was in the run-up to the Iraq War. And he said, it's actually a similar thing. You say, those people over there, now in this case, those people over there are the United States that is actually bombing, crushing, killing, despoiling, stealing the resources of West Asians, or, Middle Easterns, Muslims, right? Iraqis, Syrians, Libyans, people in Afghanistan, right? That's where Al-Qaeda came from. It was fomented and pushed by the United States. And then you say, hey, they're doing this to our people. And so you want to have a great, and the study of how actual some of the terrorism, like in the 2001 bombings in Paris, it was, here's a great story for you, young man. It's funny because Scott discovered that actually those people that, it's kind of who the people that the Fremen are. Not, I shouldn't say that's not who the Fremen are based on. That's a lot of projection, but and a lot of misunderstandings of the Western culture. But Eastern cultures. But young dudes, and they said, what you can do is if you help us to blow this building up or fly that plane into that thing, you can help us defeat the great Satan of the world, right? And the thing is, it's like the United States, just in the West generally has done more actual damage, and it has not stopped. Afghanistan's war is over, but it's still over the horizon, blowing up and killing. It's already killed millions and millions and millions of Muslims and non-white people, especially Muslims, and Central and West Asians for the last, basically forever, but definitely in the last 40 years, right? So it's not, they're not even actually, they're not, it is correct that the United States is an aggressor, and the West is all of the European nations and the allies of the United States are aggressors, right? That, I mean, it doesn't make it right to do any kind of I mean, it doesn't make it like a good strategy, or also right, and we can't condone any of these acts because these are all, of course, violations of the TOS, and that would be illegal. And also, you know, it doesn't actually necessarily get you what you want, because then U.S. just uses that as a pretext to, you know, start another $21 trillion worth of war, which is what happened after 9/11, right? So, but it's true that, you know, young people want to feel like they have a purpose, they have a meaning in life, they have a goal. They want to feel like, that's why the most popular video games are games like Call of Duty. You know, games like you know, the Star Wars games, the games where you fight great battles to save the universe, the galaxy, the world, right? Defend your people, save innocent people from being killed, right? You're always saving somebody, right? You're saving the village in an RPG in Final Fantasy VII. You're stopping, you know, Sephiroth and great evil from coming in and despoiling these, you know, these potters and these innkeepers and these people that are selling you swords and armor and bread and materia, and, you know, so that you can go and kill everyone else and save the world by killing everyone. I'm sorry, not everyone, just all the bad people. Right, anybody I killed, they were bad, and we can retroactively label them enemy combatants. It's a strategy in the United States and the Western world, is just to retroactively drop either a water gun if you're in Baltimore, and then all the black people that we killed and locked up for the rest of their lives based because we planted marijuana, they were bad because, look, they had a water gun. And I'm a savior with a gun. I'm John Wayne, right? I'm Clint Eastwood. I'm Luke Skywalker on the streets of LA cleaning up the ennui and the crime and the poverty, right? Or I'm the Paul Atreides in Iraq cleaning up those people that are coming to blow us up. Just like all of the 90s movies about threat of Islamic terrorism and all of the news media has told me. And then planes blew up, CIA asset came back, and, you know, there was backfire, as they say, in the military industrial intelligence complex. There was a little bit of accidental blowback, right? Which they expected. They expect it. And then what they do is they take the blowback and then they turn that into another. They take $1 trillion of mujahideen and grand chessboard wargaming against global communism and Asia and the East, which is what the Cold War is about ultimately. And then, right? And then when the blowback happens, because your asset that you trained and helped fire AK-47s to destabilize and cause a quagmire and a land war in Asia for Russia and China now, as Sybil Evans has said from the FBI, and CIA super spies have come out, and this is in the open if you look. And you don't just watch white savior bullshit like your news reports, public-private charter school, and the university system that trumpets this. And the university, some people know this stuff. They'll talk about colonialism and empire as a problem, but they'll just say, as Ken Hammond recently said, who's a China, one of the few people that at least tries to be a little honest on China. In academia, he said, in academia, in the United States and the Western world and in Europe, etc., it's basically a pox on both their houses. So neither Beijing nor Washington is the main line. You don't say anything other than that, because if you say anything other than that, you don't get tenure, you get excluded, your career goes down, your friends go down, your academic prospects go down. He didn't say all of those things, but that's basically what he's implying. So you jump in on white savior, red scare, yellow peril. But what you say is, okay, well, yeah, there's some problems in the United States, but you just don't say anything about Asia. You just don't say anything. Now he worked in China for a while. So did people like Richard Wolff. He's got the biggest pedigree of all with 3 Ivy League Harvard degrees. You've got what's his name? Michael Hudson, right? But he was working in China, so he doesn't have any concept. It's rogue renegade academics, actually, that is the ones that are saying any of these things. Most of academia, most of the university system, definitely all the Western media. Kishore Mahbubani, I was just another important educator, has China 1. He's a long time diplomat. He's dealt with Kissinger, the Clintons, all the Clintons. Trump. He's going all the way back. He's been through all Reagan. As a Singaporean diplomat, and he's from the East. He's actually, I believe, from Pakistan. I think his family might be from Pakistan. He spent a lot. I think his family lived in India for a bit, moved to Singapore, and he was educated in Canada. In fact, in Newfoundland, for a bit, and so he's had to understand like all of this. And so, and he said, I came back to America in the last few months, and I am horrified by the level of just this monolithic thinking, right? Monolithic thinking is what, let me get that up on the screen here. If you want, this is a very good presentation that I would recommend. It's a video interview. I mean, everything that Kishore Mahbubani does is very, very important stuff, and it dovetails with a lot of stuff that I've been talking about. This is a presentation called Kishore Mahbubani Lecture on U.S.-China Relations at the Graduate for... There's lots of these, but this was a very recent one. And he mentions in it early on, he said, like, there is the monolithic thinking and the misunderstandings of China by the United States are... I was really taken aback. I knew that there was a lot of yellow peril. There was a lot of fear of... there's the anti-communism, Cold War mentality still in the United States. But he said like the level of misunderstanding, the level of, he said both metaphysical in the sense of the situation of the Chinese mindset and their way they understand themselves and their history and their actual history as well. On top of that, both the metaphysical and from a dialectical material perspective, their history is one of having suffered a century of humiliation, right? That, just trillions and trillions of dollars of their silk, their tea, and all the things I talk about often taken out, being subjugated, having opium trafficked in, killing so many of their people, just being humiliated and crushed by Western powers under the barrel of a gun, under foreign loans, and the Summer Palace burned, and that's deep in the memory, and that's a misunderstanding that I bring it up a lot because it's not because, and also very important. It has to be understood in the Western mind, and I include my mind in that because I'm half stormtrooper. I was educated at an Emperor Palpatine training facility. So that's part of my own decolonization, is trying to understand, right? As a brown person who had my native Hawaiian language and culture banned. It was illegal to speak Hawaiian when I was born. Having that forcefully excised by United States cultural genocide, on top of some actual acts of genocide against Native Hawaiians, like the incineration of Chinatown and burning of our businesses, people, and houses in the beginning of the 1900s, similar to the Chinese experience, as I've gone over last stream. And so because of this, that all of my native Hawaiian and also I have Asian ancestry, and all of that was erased. My parents said, we are white American people who happen to have descended from these brown savages, Hawaiians. Maybe they had something like noble savages or savage savages. My parents are, like I said, the majority liberal and left, Western brained, right? They're under forced United States mandatory patriotic school where you put your hand over your heart and you say pledges of allegiance, and you're educated only in English, and Hawaiian is banned and frowned upon. And you're watching Hawaii Five-0, where white good cops routinely, and in the U.S. military and U.S. Wall Street written production notes of Hawaii Five-0, it says, when you show Hawaiians, they must be shown as backward, superstitious, overweight, unproductive, uneducated. You have to show them that in the minutes of Hawaii Five-0. I got that from my Hawaiian college professor at UH, but he was kind of another rogue professor because he was a native Hawaiian who went to LA and read what was in all of Hollywood's, like Universal Studios. He worked with Universal Studios, the MPA. He worked with the big Hollywood industry as a executive producer. He produced Arsenio Hall, Snoop Dogg. He worked with, and some of it was in the music industry. Britney Spears. He produced a TriStar. X versus Severed, the Godzilla movies. He worked on some of those. But he discovered in the notes in Hollywood all of this extremely anti-Hawaiian stuff. What was that about? That was about manufacturing consent of illegally occupied Native Hawaiians and other Asian and Pacific Islander members of the sovereign country of Hawaii, manufacturing consent and manufacturing anti-white Western and white supremacy, Western exceptionalism, and white normativity, and capitalist normativity, and manufacturing consent for the illegal state of Hawaii under the UN, right? So that was a soft power that was in those shows and films that really did, and also the history books, education, etc. All that was about erasing all that. So anyway, let me kind of off topic. So all of that is in my mind, right? When I'm that's why I can speak and I can write Neofeud and Neofeud 2, and I ghostwrite science fiction for very wealthy, low middle income dudes, or I have done that to survive racialized capitalism, where you have to pay $2,000 to have a roof. So when you have, I have that in my mind. I have to undo all of this nonsense all the time. Part of the streaming is just like, when you teach something, you have to I've taught for like 10 years in, the ghettos of Honolulu, Hawaii, as I bring up, and it's part of Neofeud, is social services and STEM teacher for ghettoized, Honduran escapees from their colonial conflagrations, Philippine fascist evaders of America's stomping on them to get to China, just like Hawaii. And I work with all these people that, and teaching them and trying to help teach them. The way to really understand something is to teach, right? Especially teaching really hard to teach, jacked up on high fructose corn syrup, Kanye, post, anything, positive Kanye, like, $500 Yeezy Kanye mass consumers, right? And try to teach them occupational knowledge, how to show up to job interviews for Starbucks, not with a ripped t-shirt and smelling like marijuana and alcohol. Teaching them health and teaching them government and law, how to not get arrested for standing on a street corner in front of 7-Eleven while a cop needs to make an arrest quota to pay their $100,000, get their $100,000 plus salary to pay their overpriced mortgage. That's $1 million in downtown Honolulu, or anywhere in Hawaii, actually, with the exception of Big Island. So when you're teaching these things, that's part of how you learn, and that's part of how you remember. So when I'm doing this, part of what I do this is I'm trying to teach, but I'm also like reaffirming things in my own mind at the same time. Anyways, I'm retreading the neural pathways, I'm neurally hacking my own brain. You gotta hack your own brain, as Ice-T would say to Keanu Reeves circa 1995. But anyway, so back to this. But everybody is, even if you don't have to necessarily be low middle income, you could be anybody, but you could still have Western exceptionalism, white normativity, white savior complexes, even though you're not white. Barack Obama definitely had this. He's over there. I don't know to whatever extent that he believed his own nonsense, that America doesn't invade and go to war for Obama said, we don't go to war for resources or wealth or conquest. We go to war for the right reasons. He said this in the mid, noughties to early teens, or late noughties, early teens. He said, America goes to war for the right reasons, to defend human rights, to bring about prosperity. He basically said the white savior story. He said, we defend human rights, we bring democracy, we liberate, we bring freedom that's what we've done to Iraq. We freed them from their dictatorships. We've saved them from violence and suffering. And we've brought great access to Western liberal democracy. And the world is so much better when America's in charge and helping them in Africa, in Asia, in both. We saved Tibet with our CIA-funded backed assets. And the Dalai Lama literally has worked for the CIA, and the feudalism that was there, we helped to save them. We're saving Taiwan, that's a part of China that doesn't want to be nuclear annihilated by a war, in violations of the One China policy and the the agreements made between the United States. So, but America has to save. That's the really dangerous one. America is trying to save Taiwan now. That could go nuclear. So that's the end. So this is very important. I mean, not just for that, but that's another very important one that I often come back to. So but in this discussion, the thing that Kishore, who is he's a Central or South Asian working in Singapore, doing diplomatic relations across the planet for the last half a century almost, right? He's not necessarily, I don't know what he is inside, but Singapore is a complicated place. It's similar to Hawaii. So it's a very small place that you have to operate not with what you cannot alter the world to be the way you want it. You must work with reality the way that it is. That's the nature of, that's part of what part of the historical, cultural, dialectical reality of Hawaii as well, which is, it is very small. And that's the difference between China and Hawaii. It's a very important difference. When you're small, you have to figure out you have to do a lot more negotiating. You can't demand, it's harder to just demand or insist on a certain way of the world in being. If you want to change the world, you have to negotiate with larger and bigger entities around you to move them towards your side. Like you have to do a lot. That's why the Hawaiians were that's part of, not the only reason, but that's indigenous, advanced, and socialist Aloha, Kuleana, and Pono values are why Hawaii had the highest literacy rate on the earth, right, in 1800s. But also, you have to be very educated and smart, because you don't have the physical, economic, nor military power to enforce your will. Like the United States has 300 something million people. It's got economic might. It's the richest country in the world. It has been for a long time. Europe historically has been. It's got a lot of people. It's got military. It's got economy. You can go to the world. You shouldn't, but you can go to the world and say, you're going to be like us. You're going to be like us. You're going to be like us, or else. Right? Let us, we're going to crush you and kill you because you're a savage, and you have to be civilized by Western capitalist Christianity. Or let us save you because you're a noble savage. Yeah, you're pretty good, but I mean, you could be a lot better. And also, you're being harmed by this brutal, authoritarian, tanky dictator. So let us save you, or else. If you don't let us save you, then you join the dark side. And when you join the dark side, now we have to save the world from you. That's the luxury of being a larger entity, like the United States, the European Union altogether. But Europe is, history in the past, Europe was, they could do that a lot more. But anyways, so that's very important, is that people but that attitude, right? Again, coming back to this, that attitude of I am, I mean, it's one thing to be like, I want to help people, and that's fine. Most people want to help people. Most people want to, Holly had a brother that became a tow truck driver, because he always had, as Holly would say, he always wanted to be in a position to help people. Like, if you're in trouble, like, I want to come and bail you out. I want to lift the heavy thing. That's why he's like a professional, power lifter, and, trying to, deadlift 2,000 pounds and lift his Chevy truck and throw it Hulk style at a bus, and, uses, Spider-Man superpowers or whatever. That's what superhero, that's what all comic book movies are about as well. It's about hero's journey. So James, Mr. Campbell, right, had Mr. Lucas read and go, oh yes, but that's the hero's journey. Encountering the darkness, getting past your fear, blah 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 blah. The great mentor. When you go through English school in the West, you're gonna have to read this stuff. And that's fine. It does make for very epic, sweeping stories. But they are still messianic. The hero's journey is fundamentally messianic. Cultures are tied together to a certain extent by great wars and battles and great, brave, and noble deeds, right? Done by figures in their past, right? Mao. I brought up, I did whole entire streams on Sun Yat-sen recently, and Kalakaua, in a certain sense, we look back to these figures, but it's very important to recognize that there's a difference between what does it, just to give my plug for Reservation Dogs, because if I don't, I'm fired from my indigenous actual revolutionary, actually, from not just the representation on screen of the actor's skin color, but the actual writer's room skin color, not white, right? That's part of the failing of all those. All of these shows fail in their writers' rooms and in their production. These are white stories. These are white men's stories in particular. You can tell, you feel it. Reservation Dogs is, it's a story that is not written by and for Western white colonizers. So we're past the 30-minute mark, so I'm gonna get more. I'm gonna get more real. But the Reservation Dogs is because the YouTube algorithm won't, Death Star ion cannon my stream off the face of the planet internet. It won't flush me out of the Matrix like Mark Zuckerberg pulling the handle on a Matrix Neopod with amniotic pink fluid streaming into the lungs. And Mark Zuckerberg won't pull the meta handle and flush me out of the virtual reality a world where everything is perfect despite the planet falling apart and climate change and nuclear war blowing it all up, until we all come out from our rage. We rage quit the metaverse and discover that we're all like 400 pounds being jacked up on ivermectin, fentanyl, and IV drip that's run out because all the electrical grid, and we've all frozen and died in the dark. Anyway, that was random cyberpunk dystopian novel in the middle of my stream. Reservation Dogs is a show that doesn't take that perspective. It doesn't take the perspective of the great it is supremacist, not in the sense of like Nazis marching down the street, tiki torches, and Jews will not replace us, and that kind of just overt racism. I'm talking about this culture. This way is better than that way, right? Christianity is better than your Shinto, your Buddhism, your Anishinaabe practices, spiritual practices. It's better than your heathenism, your paganism, in France circa 1700s, your Huguenot Protestantism is inferior to the Holy French Roman Catholic Empire under Louis XIV, the Sun King, and these men with guns and swords and the capacity to kill you and your family are being ordered into your house. The dragoons in France, because the mission civilisatrice, the French conception of that, was first instantiated upon other Europeans, in fact, and then it was visited upon people in the Terra Nullius Turtle Island, right? And the extermination of indigenous people and kill the Indian, save the man. Civilization meant very similar to what it meant in France. It's part of why the United States Constitution includes within it, right? There will be no quartering and installation of soldiers, right, of United States military personnel within the houses of the American citizens. That's in the Constitution. It's like very close to the top. It's like one, two. It's like I forget which one it is. One is freedom of speech, press, etc., etc. Second Amendment, we know what that one is. But it's like I think it's like number 3. If I could be mistaken, but it's because of monolithic imperial exceptionalism, right? Our way is superior to your way, and we will enforce our way whether you like it or not, right? And that attitude, right? So Reservation Dogs doesn't have that. That's the difference between Turtle Island, Yajo, Alkebulan. Actually, let me get the names for all these places correct, because this is part of Neofeud too as well. It's the ways of Alkebulan, Yajo, Hanuna, right? Or Africa, Asia, and America, respectively. They did the most of the planet, in fact. As Kishore correctly points out in Has China Won, is most of the planet is not even US or China, in fact. But if you just take the West, it's only like 1 out of, it's like 800 million out of 7 billion or less. So most of these people, they didn't have this way of forcing religion, right? Christianity, forcing culture, whether that's the economic, capitalist economics, not forcing language, right? Like everyone must speak English, right? Hawaiian language ban, indigenous language banned in Canada, United States under settler colonialism. That's why Indians all got to speak English today. So the world's largest democracy is in fact India. They were all the coolies, the slaves and the pillaged and the exploited, carrying the British and having their lands turned into opium farming to smuggle it into through Macau and through Hong Kong and through other Western, East Coast ports with gunboat murder and might makes right barbarism, in fact, into China. And so all these places, that's if you look at the places that have historically been colonized, it's the places that existed in less imperial, less might makes right, less barbaristic, less mass violence and mass disinformation based cultures, which is the majority of the earth, right? That's why it's one way to look at it is, oh, you guys just were good at fighting. But that's kind of unfair to the Chinese, the people of India, the people of Africa, the people of, North Central South America, or what they internally call Turtle Island, or Hanuna, I believe is another indigenous word for, there's many different languages, but Hanuna can mean like all of, in some of their cultures in Turtle Island, indigenous peoples, it can mean all of North Central South America. In the Pacific, also, right? So it's not just that they were bad at fighting, although they were not good at conducting mass violence to force ways, economic extortion, extraction, enslave, steal land. That's not what the people of Yajou or Asia, right? China, etc. Not that they had zero battles, but they were not like in the majority of what they're doing. They're majority doing peaceful trade, mutual cooperative, win-win cooperation, coexistence. It's still what they want to do. When you listen closely, right? When you listen closely to what China actually is saying, I'm going to turn off this right now because it's not really interesting. I'm going to put my sale thing on because I need to sell Neofeud. But if you listen to what China and Africa as well, and also Central South America, what they're saying is, they're not saying Africa doesn't want to come to America, right? Enslave all the white people in America, bomb DC, right? China doesn't want to they don't want to have Chinese aircraft carriers and destroyers sailing up and down Los Angeles. They don't want bases in Mexico with nuclear missiles pointed into Houston and Starbase, right? They don't want Chinese troops on the border of. They don't want. The U.S. just reported there. It just came out. They openly said, this has always been the case, but they openly said it's a difference, that there are troops. The CIA, the U.S. military has had troops stationed in and training Taiwanese people. That the China doesn't want Chinese troops stationed in Los Angeles secretly or overtly training or in Hawaii, for example, right? Training Hawaiians and other non-white people arming to overthrow the illegal occupation of Hawaii, even though Hawaii is under the United Nations charter from the United Nations High Commissioner on Human Rights. Hawaii is undergoing an ongoing illegal occupation based on a century-old illegal military occupation and fraudulent annexation, complete violations of every international law that we know that we have. As Agent Smith would say, you're guilty, United States, of basically every law on the books that you violated every law that we have on our books, right? United States is the number one violator of these things. Everyone knows this, right? All the countries know this. Most people, if they really thought about it, they would know this. You just war of aggression, right? But that's not what China wants. China doesn't want to back, and that's not what I want in particular either. I don't want. That's not because it's not going to work. Number one, that's part of the Western narrative, is that things are solved through the story of great imperial battles, right? Whether that's Harkonnens and Sardaukars and Atreides, right? Intergalactic space Western, space France, space Britain, and space Spain, right? Fighting over, or space US, right? Fighting a very racist version, and actually homophobic, Frank Herbert's rendition of the Harkonnens is, his name is Vladimir. He's Russian. So just right there for you. So you got Duncan, Idaho, the good American, what is his brother's name? Donuts, Michigan. Duncan and Donuts. Duncan, Idaho, Donuts, Michigan. How more American, American country bumpkin warrior can you get? That's the trainer of Paul Atreides, the savior of the universe, right? And then you have Vladimir the gay. He's also gay coded, everyone's uncle. Somebody pointed this out. So he's gay. He's despotic, authoritarian. He's the bad Asian that we have to save. He's the savage, right? He's the savage non-white person from Asia. Vladimir Putin now. That we have to save the noble savages. Those are all the Russian people, right? I support the Chinese people against the Chinese government, right? We have to save the savage is Xi Jinping, and the savage, yellow peril savage is Xi Jinping, and the noble savage is the Chinese 1.4 billion people, right? And I care so much about these brainwashed, backward, bat-eating masses. So you're simultaneously insulting them but trying to save them. But that's deep in the Western mind. That's like left, right, and center. Redneck country bumpkin, Dunkin' Donuts, Idaho, to college professor, 8-year degree leftist in Marxist philosophy, which we've housed, and they had the same attitude. They came here and they wanted to save Hawaiians from our backwardness. That's everywhere. Almost no one can get past that. To get past it, it means literally getting past it doesn't mean getting past your whiteness ultimately. And it means getting past your Westernness. In fact, it means getting past your Americanness. Very difficult, I say this as somebody who has had to go through that. So, but that's the same concept. Is that and also one more thing I want to point out, Frank Herbert, because now we're in the criticism phase. Frank Herbert himself apparently was quite homophobic. I'm trying to get the exact thing so I don't say something wrong. Frank Herbert was unable to accept his own son, Bruce Calvin Herbert, as being gay. And so he disowned his own son for his gayness. So, that doesn't necessarily mean that people thought a lot of wrong things in a lot of different times, of course. However, it was a white dude from the mid 20th century in the middle of the Cold War. So was, Heinlein was a white man from the West who wrote stories about the despotic communist scourge and made an insectile race of brainwashed yellow peril in space bugs that the great white men, right, would save. He was basically a space American capitalist fascist, that was what Starship Troopers was, right? And he, and many people were wrapped up in this narrative, and some people go now. The backwards rationalization is people will say, "Oh, well, you see, Starship Troopers was a very ironic rip, and the movie is just making fun of Western imperialism." And people say the thing about Dune. Oh, well, Dune is an anti-imperialist narrative because Paul turns out to be the bad guy somewhere 6 books in that nobody ever makes movies about, nobody talks about, and most of your left, right, and center friends and people in the West, they don't give a shit about that. In fact, when you get close, so that's why I would say Starship Troopers, Star Wars, right? Starship Troopers, white people showing up and a white dude showing up in space, killing space insectile hive mind Russian Vladimir Harkonnen, Vladimir Putin's Soviet communists, just being mass-led, Sig Heiling, marching in their white and black Death Star with no fun, no happiness, no celebration, in their military stormtrooper uniforms, or in their insectile, even worse, Starship Troopers. It's just like, you're all just a bunch of bugs. You're an infestation. You're debased blood, as John Swinton, labor organizer, as Marx would say. The Chinese vitality is missing It is a fallen, hereditarily stupid people, and the great Anglo-Saxon, Celtic, and Teutonic blood fused in America and produced the great vitality. That was Karl Marx, who also was down with the Western narrative of the Yellow Peril and the Red Scare and Western exceptionalism, even as a leftist, as pretty far on the left, you might say. But everyone is united, as they are in the Democrats, Republicans, the progressives, the Squad, and much of the left in the United States and the West to this day. They're all united in one thing. We have to exterminate the Asians and steal their shit before they embarrass us, like China is doing. That's why Bloomberg is freaking out and put, oh my God, China, why don't they rein in Facebook? You know, why don't they let Facebook run and the big tech run ramshackle like we let Mark Zuckerberg own the United States Congress and get billions of tax bailouts and fucking propagandize all the people and crush capacity for actual educated peoples, and that back far right. China, why don't you just fail to rein in your big capitalist Wall Streeters, like the Evergrande investors, right? Like the billionaires that are all being cracked down on and freaking out, right? The West cannot get past this stuff, and so it has to write terrible movies and books like Starship Troopers to justify remember, this is what Heinlein was very upfront about this. We have to crush Eastern communism. You know, much of Russia is Asian. You know, however, they have internal. They're not perfect society. Neither is China, nor Russia. These are not like perfect civilizations, right? But the conversation is not. It is not balanced. It has never been, and it is not now balanced in the West. Nobody cares. There's like Ken Hammond, and then there's 900,000 other. There's like the Ken Hammond, and there's 1,000 non-Ken Hammonds, right? There's one Richard Wolff, and then there's 1,000 professors in economics, history, sociology, anthropology, political science, foreign relations that are 100% Heinlein. I support the Chinese people overthrowing their government. Don't understand anything, actually. Even they've read some books on China, they don't know fucking anything because they're still full. The movies are more powerful, and the mainstream media is more powerful on their minds than even some of it surpasses even the books that they've read, because they, some of which might even be written by Chinese, but then it just gets, my father is in one of these people. It just gets glossed over, it gets written over by really good Western imperial propaganda and the history books, but all the propaganda. So Starship Troopers is one of these. I would argue like basically every science fiction novel written by a white dude is white savior, Western exceptionalist, imperialist propaganda. Period. I can't think of one that's like well known. I mean, you might have but basically, you've got Binti. Why isn't Binti a movie right now? By the way, this needs to be a TV show or a movie. But George R.R. is supposed to be back in this, but not. I don't know. It's not happening. We gotta get Taika and Vin Diesel on the case. You know what I'm saying? And so it's not necessarily being very light-skinned and identifying as man. That's not what makes it a white dude story. It's the way that you're socialized and the internalization of who you are within the context of the rest of reality, geopolitics, and history. That's what I mean by that. That's the mindset and the positioning, right, of Starship Troopers that makes it different. I mean, because you could be, as a Native Hawaiian and Asian person, I could, if I didn't undo 2 decades of colonial, imperial, capitalist, consent manufacturing, history, economics, political science from the grade school, the $20,000 a year private school, and the public schools are even worse, and the college colonial propaganda that was installed into my brain. This is the same thing. So I know what's being taught in colleges because I went to one, and I know many professors who are full of, even the left professors, most of them believe are either ignorant cowards or believe completely wrong things about Asia, China specifically. Some of them usually they're usually better on indigenous rights, although not. Anthropology departments of Canada doubled down on Canada's genocide, and they supported Canada's denial of indigenous people's rights. So it's not like much of the college and academic world is full of this nonsense as well. But it's a thing that has to be. It's a very difficult thing to interrogate because much of your identity is probably wrapped up in the belief of you and your forefathers, your heritage, your parents' parents, your nation, your country, if not even your nation, your country, this sense of your science fiction fans, right? Your Discord friends, the language, the people that you speak, the legacy of whatever you look back and you say, this is who I am in the world, right? You look at Tesla, even if you look back at my heritage is Voltaire and rabble rousers. I'm a hacker and I like Wozniak and all these people, and whoever it is you look back at, there's people. Frank Herbert. I look back and I see Frank Herbert as I want to be a great sci-fi loving nerd making pop culture entertainment. Whoever you look back and you say, I want to be Emma Goldman and Karl Marx of the future. And, that's fine. But if you miss that John Swinton, labor organizer, and Emma Goldman, who also worked with racist, anti-Chinese people and said Chinese have a debased, debaucherous blood. They're apolitical. They have no capacity to be political. They are morally just atrocious and disgusting, and we should kick the Chinese out with the Chinese Exclusion Act, and we should they should not be allowed to debase our great white blood. And that's what America is doing today. That's what the patriot left is doing. That's what the new right left and the fake left that's fearing white genocide. That's the narrative of Nazis. And then there's the liberal freak out that's about Asia and China and lying to maintain its own Western supremacy. All of that stuff, whatever heritage and ancestors and whatever procession of peoples, the language that you speak, your ideas of what Africa, Asia, Turtle Island peoples are, all of that has to be undone over like years. It's not gonna, hopefully faster than that, because we don't want to start nuclear war with the China. All of America right now, 70+% of America believe America is right to support Taiwan. And go, United States should fight on the side of Taiwan. The US military should join in to fight Taiwan in a defense against the invasion of China. 70+% of the United States believe that is incredibly dangerous. Because China, the one thing that China will not go back on, if you know anything about what the Chinese people, not what the West has said about China, now what your professor, what your so-called China watcher, China expert, what they actually believe, right? I mean, and I'm just saying to the best of my, I'm not Chinese from China, but from the best of my ability to gather what they have been saying, China is one China. China is not a separate country from Taiwan. It's a handful of neoliberal puppets like the current president who is saying that China must have democracy. But it's the same thing as Ghani in Afghanistan, right? But America, left, right, and center, the vast majority, over 70%, are for the United States military intervening, which would mean, what does that mean? That means direct military kinetic warfare against a nuclear superpower. So Americans, 70+% of Americans want nuclear annihilation. So that this is so do you see where I'm not just doing these streams just because I just want to like own someone, destroy, I just hate white people. It's not really about that. I want to help, like Kishore about. I want the best for people in the United States. I have family there, I have friends all over Canada, US. I don't want, and all over the world, I don't want people to suffer and die in nuclear annihilation, right? But these stories, these light side messiah stories of the light side being the dark and the light side, it doesn't necessarily mean white and black. It could mean Western, free, right, democratic versus authoritarian. It could mean capitalist versus communist, but it could also mean socialist, anarchist flavor left versus despotic, tanky authoritarian. It could mean, the light side is my side and you're the evil side, and we have to stop you, right? It could mean Christian versus non-Christian, right? It definitely means that for the neocons. It could mean it could be just straight up race, but it's often not just the race, right? Kamala Harris is a Western exceptionalist, but she's not white, right? She's black and Asian. but still believes. She goes to Vietnam and says, we're going to build back better. Right? So, the lights, you know, this attitude is still there, you know. Most Americans support defending Taiwan if China, most Americans, let me see, let me get the actual, let me see if I can get some actual VOAs, CIA imperial propaganda. It's like, that's a Death Star satellites, definitely. And we're gonna get the percentage though. Oh fuck, I can't, paywalled. Okay. 52% of Americans support using troops to defend Taiwan against the Chinese invasion. 69% support U.S. recognition of Taiwan independence. 70% of America, that is also incredibly dangerous and disastrous. So 70% of the West is of Americans. That includes right and left, right, center, and left, right? And I've heard this from 8-year degree having Marxist, Leninist, communist, anarchist, Western leftists. They all say this. I support, the Chinese are settler colonizing on Taiwan. That's the one for people that are against settler colonialism in academic, liberal and left circles. The Chinese are, their authoritarian, despotic regime is installing, is harming the Taiwanese. The Taiwanese need independence. We support the Taiwanese independence. Whatever you need, right? For the right wing, it's just like China is just bad, and whatever we have to do to crush China, we're going to crush China, right? Savage narratives for the right, right? China is going to take our lunch, stealing our technology. Hey, we can disrupt them in Taiwan, right? The liberal is the Taiwanese are suffering under horrible, brutal Chinese government oppression. We have to support the Taiwanese, right? Like it's, as a native Hawaiian undergoing illegal occupation, right, I can speak a little bit to what it's like to be actually undergoing settler colonial military occupation. And let me say, I do not support Taiwan independence. Why do I not support Taiwan independence? Because Taiwanese people and the Chinese people collectively, if you actually respect them as people and don't have internalized Western exceptionalism, Western supremacy, and you actually listen to them in a dialectical, honest way and have a balanced discussion, you would know they don't actually want that. The vast majority of them do not want that for many reasons. And one of them is because that is not possible. It's not possible that this island is capable of defending itself. And also, you cannot, they don't want to, they know that what's going to happen if the war were to break out would be within minutes, if not days, complete destruction of the military and also the deaths of many of their civilians, most likely, and possibly nuclear annihilation of the entire Earth with hypersonic missiles from fractional orbital bombardment on Chicago, Los Angeles, Vancouver, Perth, Australia, Sydney, Australia, because you're in AUKUS now and you have nuclear submarines, you're on the target list, but everyone is in the West. London, which the Chinese, they're not going to tell you this up front, but they tell the ruling class that runs the Western imperialist world. They know what the Chinese actually have, and they want the Chinese. If a nuclear war to break out with the U.S. and China, they're this is horrific. But if you want to fight Taiwan, if you want to say nonsense with the other majority of the United States, realize that there will be 30 million to 100 million Americans dead if it's not total nuclear winter. Because if I mean, who knows what would happen? Nuclear, this COP26, whatever you think is gonna happen, forget that. Forget that. Everything on Earth could be annihilated. So it's a waste of time to even deal with climate change if you're not gonna come clean on shit like Taiwan. What is the good of stopping a 2-degree rise in temperature when you have complete annihilation of all life on Earth through nuclear winter, radioactive wastelands, and global total collapse? What is the point? There is none. To wait, COP26, whatever socialist, anarchist, left or liberal, whatever human rights you're defending of settler, of Palestine, black people, indigenous people, this is all very important. But there's a lot of white leftists who are down for defending the rights of black, indigenous people, stopping the police, abolishment of prisons, stopping, continued colonialism, pillaging in the global south, free Palestine, free the peoples in Bolivia, Colombia. I was going to say free Tibet, but that's a CIA op for the West to try to balkanize China. All of your actions are irrelevant if this is allowed to happen. Everything that you were talking about is a way, and this Taiwan is the one place, South China Sea, very dangerous, but it's not quite the. I mean, everywhere there's the Rand Corporation and military intelligence complex actors are constantly wargaming out all these scenarios with their Ender's games. Speaking of science fiction, playing Ender's games, like they're trying to end the world games. That's what they're doing. They're ending the planet games. That's what Mr. Ellsberg and the people working with the Marshall and the blue team, red team, Panda Hugger, Panda Sluggers were wargaming out, nuking China, nuking Korea, nuking all of Asia because they don't count as humans, right? So anyway, I have to really emphasize that point because it is incredibly dangerous right now. It's like one of the most dangerous things that can happen. U.S. is gearing towards this war, by the way. The military-industrial complex is pushing. It thinks, I don't know what it thinks. It doesn't really think enough, obviously. The Rand Corporation, by the way, has been wrong. It wargamed out that a limited conventional warfare in the South China Sea could disrupt the Strait of Malacca, the waterways, the strait between Philippines and Taiwan, and crush Chinese trade to plummet its economy. Its delivery of Baby Yoda T-shirts, semiconductor-filled GM trucks, Toyotas, solar panels, and the world's factory would stop. It would crush its capacity if we could have limited proxy warfare in the South China Sea, Philippines, Vietnam, something. They bet on Vietnam allowing military bases to be installed within it and have its territory, have Pearl Harbor is basically next to Hanoi. Have USS President, aircraft carriers, destroyers, F-22 Raptors stationed up and down the Vietnamese coastline. They were wrong. So the United States, and that's good because, that's good in a positive direction because that would be increased military tensions and the possibility of total annihilation of all life on Earth, and destruction of everything Western civilization. There's no such thing as Western civilization. The destruction of human civilizations, and a lot of people in the West, if that were to break out. But the thing is that it's good that they were wrong, and Vietnam, like Hawaii, which was the third neutral country in the family of nations after Switzerland in the 1800s, continues to choose to be an independent, neutral country, non-aligned, with no military bases, no military alliances in the family of nations under the UN. The UN Charter, very important thing to defend. As Vijay Prashad, tricontinental founder and no Cold War activist, anti-imperialist, South Asian indigenous leftist, as Vijay Prashad, the communist, as he said, the countries of the world, the only document that really has any actual buy-in and that is actually signed onto by the vast majority of the world is the UN Charter, which is why the group of friends, right? That's China, Russia, Iran, Venezuela, Bolivia, and a bunch of other counter-hegemonic, anti-imperialist, capitalist countries have signed on to. It's the group of friends in the defense of the UN Charter, right? And so Vietnam, very smartly, has continued to try to stay neutral, to not go into military alignment, to abide by international law, despite the United States pushing Vietnam, right, against that grain. And so the Rand Corporation, which is a military think tank founded in the mid-20th century, around the time when Heinlein and Mr. Frank Herbert were writing about the grand chessboard in Asia, right, against Russia and China in Dune and Starship Troopers. Those are about the Starship Troopers is about just coming in and wiping out Russia and China. So that's like right-wing Western barbarism. And then Frank Herbert was, we're gonna save Russia and China with backing the Mujahideen. It's nonsense, but it's liberal. That's one way to look at the Heinlein heritage of science fiction and the Herbertian Frank Herbert line of science fiction. They're both basically eugenicists. They're both homophobic. They're both anti-gay. They're both the Bene Gesserit are literally they're through breeding programs producing the perfect human white specimen. That's literally what Paul Atreides, the Bene Gesserit grand leader, right? That woman that makes Paul stick his hand into the pain box, right? Simulate like a million flames and acid like destroying his nerve endings inside of his hand, right? It's a simulation of extreme pain, right? That woman is somebody who is leading a eugenics program to breed the perfect emperor, the perfect leader. It's a good person that's going to liberate everyone. So we need psionically empowered, ultimate military strategist, academically, head and shoulders, miles above, anyone else, the perfect, eugenically perfect specimen. That's deep in the Western mind too. That's like right there. It's right there in the book, by the way, in Frank Herbert's Dune. And then he disowned his gay son. And then you have Heinlein. It's that's just like we have to slaughter all these insectile Asians and their communist scourge. Just massacre, nuke them, F-35s, bomb them, come in with Starship troops, just slaughter them all, just kill them all. Kill every Russian and Chinese person. And until they are erased from the earth, kill every communist, just kill them all. That was Heinlein. That's the United States. And so those narratives, right, continue in the neocons and the neolibs. Those narratives continue in we have to just the Chinese are that's the Trump supporters, right? That all of the one thing that united the Capitol Hill rioters was they're all anti-CCP. Biden is a pet of Xi Jinping, and we got to go beat up those Chinese in the streets and then make war on them in Asia, right? And then the liberals is we're going to save the Uyghurs, the Tibetans, the Taiwanese, and the Hong Kong unions and the Hong Kong people. Because even Giannis fell prey to that stuff. Was over there going, we've got to free Tibet and the Uyghurs and Hong Kong. I was like, Giannis, why are you falling to Western capitalist imperialist propaganda again? But when you hang around too many white, especially white dude, but just any Western white academics, human beings generally, you're gonna be surrounded by the echo chamber, and then it starts penetrating through repetition and the fire hose of disinformation, morphing and melding your mind, and it works. It works. I mean, I will say this. It will work on anyone. It will work on me too. If I hear and think the same thought, even if it's like I know it's wrong in the beginning, if other people that I feel I want to be friends with and feel cool and respected by them, even if I don't really believe it, I'll start repeating it. And eventually, if you keep repeating a thing, you will eventually come. I feel it can happen easily. You'll come to believe that thing because people have their residual self-image as smart, educated, good, intelligent people. Wants to self-reinforce, and so when you even though I know it's wrong, but I'm gonna say this thing because I want to keep my job at this university. I'm gonna save Chinese Uyghurs because I don't want to lose my good position at the University of Chicago. I don't want to jeopardize my friend network in this leftist discourse. So I'm gonna say save Uyghurs, and I'm not gonna say true things about China, right? But if you keep saying that thing, right, and you surround yourself with people who say that, your romantic relationships, your economic relationships get entangled, and that manipulates your brain. This is like, this is PsyOps 101, but it works. It's not rational. It's not actually rational. If college professors were actually operating rationally, they would come clean on what they actually know, but they don't. That's why 70% of the United States, right, is down for Taiwan independence and wants to start nuclear war. Right? That, they're down for nuclear annihilation. They don't even realize that that's what it is. I think most of them. But that's what they're down for. That's why it's so incredibly dangerous. And not just nuclear annihilation. Even if you want to deal with climate change, a conflict between China and the United States cannot persist if you want to deal with you need to have the two world's largest and most powerful economies, China in particular. You cannot have them at heads with each other if you want to deal with climate change. When you have them at odds with each other, you're increasing the military-industrial complex spending, which is the number one producer of climate emissions. So you want climate change, you can't deal with it if you don't deal with the US military, which is what the COP26 is not going to mention. They don't give a fuck because they're cowards and they're idiots. A lot of these people that I just listened to some of these TED Talks and this. I had, the Hulk, I had, Leo, I had a bunch of white saviors talking about we're going to reduce our emissions. How are you going to reduce your emissions if you're afraid to call out the military industrial complex that enforces global capitalism, global fossil fuel energy maintenance, and global fascism, and is also consuming the number one organization consuming the most, emitting the most greenhouse gases? You can't touch it. We'll change agriculture a bit. Yeah, agriculture has to be changed as well, but that's still 30% is electricity generation alone, and the U.S. military industrial complex is not really down with altering its methods. Neither is and you know what else, the transportation and capitalism is not really down with good, efficient, public, low carbon transport. They're not really down with that. And if the US military gets its way, it wants to push the rest of the world, because capitalism cannot be maintained. And the military industrial complex cannot be maintained if global socialism and Western hegemony cannot be maintained. If global actually renewable, like China, which has the highest number of renewable investments, leads in renewable, biotech, nanotech, AI, space science. The Chinese just invented a quantum supercomputer. Speaking of high tech, they have a supercomputer, the Zhujiang, that operates a septillion times faster than the fastest supercomputer. Septillion. So after billion, right? Billion, like 1.4 billion people. Million, like the 3 million Chinese that would have died if they didn't protect their people as well. As if Chinese protected their people as terribly as the United States per capita, they'd have 3 million deaths. After million, right? After 1.4 billion, after trillion, right? Think about the $2 trillion budget that Biden can't pass, right? Or think about the 152 trillion that the global North has stolen from the global South and the West at the helm of that, and the United States at the helm of that, from Africa, from Alkebulan, Yajo, and Hanona, right? From Africa, Central South America, and Africa. Trillion. After trillion comes quadrillion, right? Quadrillion. Think about the 1.5 quadrillion in derivative shadow, eldritch, high finance electrons and microwave beamed from dark New Jersey servers across the planet in AI, high frequency trading, artificially intelligent algorithms, manufacturing NFTs of Dogecoin within a Shiba Inu inside of a Elon Musk Bitcoin space planet annihilation scheme, right? After quadrillion, that's how many derivatives, 1.5 trillion of quadrillion. After that, there is quintillion, and then after quintillion, that's 1,000 times more than a quadrillion. Then there's hexillion, and then after 1,000 times more of that is septillion. The Chinese have invented a Zhujiang computer that is a septillion times faster than the fastest supercomputer. It's almost indescribable. 10 billion times faster than the previous version of itself. It would take 30 trillion years, right? Or multiple heat deaths of the universe, like thousands and thousands of heat deaths of the universe, to solve a problem that the Zhujiang supercomputer in China can solve in 1 millisecond. So Meta, Mark Zuckerberg's Meta, is a pipe dream wrapped up in an NFT smoked by white Silicon Valley Star Wars and Cyberpunk 2077 and Call of Colonialism over consumers, right? Who could probably use a 3-hour-a-week Chinese actual based socialist government limitation on their amount of time they waste burning their neurons inside of blowing up Taiwanese people in virtual reality to train to join the US military and fight nuclear annihilation losses, because every side loses in mutually assured destruction against China. I'm waiting for Battlefield 2042 to be like literally just, okay, this is the part where we get ourselves nuked, but then we live by flying to Mars. So that's I'm waiting for that one. And so every American will believe that they can get in their own personal star their Starship Trooper Starbase launched Elon Musk Starship. They're all going to own their own, just like in the Expanse, right? Everyone's going to have their own because we're all temporary embarrassed trillionaires, right? And you can get in your Starship at your own personal starbase and fly to Mars as you start nuclear war, shooting hypersonic missiles in the South China Sea from your rusty AUKUS subs that are falling and crashing into fish farms, right? So I'm waiting for that game to come out. And Mark Zuckerberg Meta will have everybody forced to play that for their Zuck coins. I hate it when reality keeps on scooping my goddamn Neofeud 2. Zuck coin is cryptocurrency that is the global reserve currency of the galaxy in Neofeud 2. So you have to use your Meta Zuck coins by blowing up virtual Taiwanese shooting People's Liberation Army of China airplanes and trying to shoot Taipodongs, starting nuclear war. But the way that you win, right? It's okay because you can fight the war like Luke Skywalker on Earth. You can be Paul Atreides, Luke Skywalker, and the Rio-based Starship Trooper, right? You can be the Earth, Jefferson and Washington, right? The great military heroes that founded America. Racist, slaves' teeth in my mouth, right? You can be the Washington and the Atreides, and you can be the Neo of the Earth, right? And then you can fly to space. That's the solution. Is by the end of the Taiwanese nuclear conflict, right? And enough nukes to blow the Earth up 1,000 times over, and the only thing that survives is basically aphotic bacteria, as every inch of the planet is radioactive husk, and there's no life. And all of your veganism was a waste of time because all the dogs, cats, Shiba Inus, Doges, calves, and all the ivermectin is useless. You shot up all that ivermectin, but now it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because there's no more horses to deworm, or humans, or ants, or chickens, or polar bears. They're all radioactive ash floating above what used to be Canada. It's all vaporized. All your indigenous support, useless because they're all radioactive craters where there once was the sacred rivers, and Pachamama is just an irradiated, burnt out, incinerated, a dead woman, like a missing and murdered indigenous woman in Canada. And that was also a waste of time. Because why? Because you failed to undo your internalized nonsense. Because the video games that you play in Battlefield 2042, Call of Colonialism, Starship, Star Wars Troopers, the movies that you watch, The Expanse, where white dudes are going to save the world from the scary global south belters that do the 1 million person civilian killing. It's America doing the 1 million person civilian killing. You're going to be the great, like Mr. Holden and the Cowfield, written by two 52-year-old white guys. That's what Expanse is. It's two 52-year-old Gen X white guys who are Hollywood insiders. That's a ridiculous fucking story. And is terribly dangerous because it says that the biggest problem is belters coming back to commit inner genocide. If the belters are, and they speak of a kind of white dude, racist it's very white, it's very black Asian face, black and Asian amalgamation of their languages. They talk kind of like Jamaica, man. The ina loda gana bana, but white guys waking up fake black and Asian accents, right? If black and Asians and the global south is represented by the belters throw meteors and commit the first violence against the white, Western, European, and American, and Euro-descended settler colonial countries, right? That's the story of the most recent season. And that's the real danger, is that Africa and China and Central South America, Mexico and the Mexican communist government, or Cuba, could allow missiles to be stationed, and Cuba will do a first strike on Mr. Republican Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz's Texas, and Republican Florida, right? All of the dying COVID-19 patients in Florida, right, under DeSantis, will get nuked by Chinese missiles flying out of Cuba, or Mexico turning aside. That's the story of The Expanse. That's the last season. That's the final narrative. And the solution is Space Hillary Clinton with Iranian characteristics, played by Avisarala, the president of the inner systems, will have Martians, Belters, and Earthers come together in an anti-Stop Asian Hate AAPI panel. It happens in the last episode. Oh, this is what happens. We're going to have the Rocinante, where we have black, white, Asian, and brown come together, and they save the universe with Obama. We have Dwayne the Rock Samoan Brown Johnson. We have Shang-Chi, Marvel superhero global white saviors, and we have Captain America with Mr. James motherfucking Holden, right? With the Western exceptionalist first world plural military industrial complex of brown Iraqi murderers. We have Asian Afghanistan bombers. We have black Taiwanese. We have black Taiwan troop trainers shooting missiles at China, and that's the solution. Is we stop the evil global South and the evil colonized countries like Marcos and Arios in Expanse by more successfully fighting a war against them. And the real danger is they're gonna come, and we're gonna couch our white genocide in a pluralified, not dealt with racialized capitalism and colonial history that the Expanse just brushes past that and just kind of like brown and black washes the cast, and then it codes them all as Asian and black, the global South. The real danger is white genocide and communist first strike nuclear attacks. The real danger is, or China is going to come to LA, right, and invade the port, right? Red Dawn is going to happen, right? The story that Hollywood produced about China launching Chinese planes flying over Oregon, bombing the nice white put a bird on it Portlandians, right? Invading and with Chinese tanks storming into Seattle, right? Bulldozing all of the nice $15 an hour wage askers and all the nice Microsoft and Amazon employees. China is going to come to California and is going to shoot all of the yoga studio hip liberal practitioners hanging out with Jerry Brown, right? And that's the real danger. And when that and then Chris Helmsworth, right, another Avenger, this is what happens in Red Dawn, stops the evil Chinese invasion of the Chinese communists into America with their CCP flags, right? And all they're brainwashed. That's why every 8 hours a Chinese college student an FBI investigation is opened on them. Why? Because they're all going to support the Chinese invasion any second now into Florida, and the Russians probably helped them too, into New York, into California. They had to rewrite Red Dawn because Hollywood figured out, oh my goodness, we actually make the majority of our sales in China because guess what? We're a flagging, failing Western economy, and America will never have a functioning movie, theater, yoga. It will never be safe to go in an office, a yoga theater, a school, or anywhere in America ever again. Because why? Because you will never deal with COVID-19. You're currently supercharging Darwinian evolution of microscopic planet annihilators like COVID-19. The next one, the Delta plus is 12. It's a 12 R of 12, meaning for every person it infects, it's 12 people get infected. So you're supercharging by your failed Western policies of the people and the government. You're ruining all of this. So anyways, you're going to create super bugs that are going to destroy and your vaccine apartheid, stopping global South from getting the goddamn vaccines, right? And the real problem is that the Belters, right, the Vladimir Harkonnen Russians, the Chinese Starship Trooper alien insect bugs are going to come in and eat your brains, right? The zombies are the black and the brown coming out and they're going to eat your brains, right? That's what Zack Snyder said about Muslims circa 2001 to 2005 to help manufacture consent for the invasion and to kill more Asians under Yellow Peril Muslim scare in Iraq, Afghanistan, and forever wars. So, so like I'm jumping around because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to tie all of this is tied together, and these are these continued narratives that plague the Western world, and this is why it's like incredibly dangerous. In fact, these not just the film is just part of the entertainment industrial complex, is part of manufacturing all these consent. It's telling these great stories, and they really work. You know how they work? Because 75% of France, because they watch so many American World War II movies, they think America won the Second World War, which is false. It was the insects that Heinlein wanted to crush, right? It was all of the gay Russian communists that I disown my gay son Herbert wanted to back, right? The freemen, right? The ETIM freemen of the and the Mujahideen, the far right extremists in the desert, and he wanted to save, right, them. No, he didn't want to. America didn't want to. Never cared about any Muslims. They will use them to try to crush the Asians, right? The communists. That's what this game has always been, you know. That narrative is, you know, I don't know. It's hard to even really it's hard to really find a story that doesn't counteract that narrative until you have to really exit the West, you know. The other thing I want to say is, and that's why Binti is different, because Binti is a story that doesn't the salvation. There is somebody does save things by the end of it. It's a story where, you know, there are warring space squid crossed with a jellyfish Medusa. They're like these floating air jellyfish with, you know, like it's like they're kind of like almost like fifth dimensional organisms. I can't remember exactly, but they have some kind of technology that allows them to like move incredibly quickly through the air, and they can kill anything very fast because they're almost they have near superhuman powers, but they have many weaknesses as well. They're this kind of like floating air jellyfish that is incredibly deadly. But Binti's character and also in the humans, the Kaush, they're very Euro colonizer coded. They don't explicitly say these are Europeans, but they basically are. Start wars with the Medusa peoples, these alien sentient civilization. But these wars result in the deaths of millions and millions of humans and these space aliens. And it's the actual colonized people, historically, the Himba people, that the Binti has an actual coating on her body that the Medusa, because of this coating, is incapable of penetrating. It's the Ojis, which is in the desert. I mean, as another desert people, as the actual Fremen, as one of the actual Fremen, a non-white desert people. Speaking of Dune, the people in Binti, the main protagonist, is a member of a non-white desert people who wash, right? Unlike Europeans, they don't wash their blood, and that's why they have COVID-19. They will all die from plagues and scourges, and they died of the Black Plague. And also, that's just gross. Why don't you wash your butt? Oh, that's right, so we can sell overpriced French 1700s and French 21st century perfumes and oil of Olay and Axe with Jake Gyllenhaal. Disgusting. Also, just lazy. Anyways, so the Europeans, I didn't get enough sleep, and it's past the nice time. The Europeans in this story, the Euro-coded peoples, starting war, causing death and destruction. The main character is you know, historically colonized people. They have not fight no battles. They do have their own internal problems as well. But in the first book, anyway, Binti washes with this dirt. It's not dirt. It's a special type of mud that keeps you clean and keeps your hair clean in a time and in a place where there's very little water. You know, like the Fremen have those suits in Dune that recycle basically almost 100% of the water. Your sweat, your breathing, your urination, your tears, everything goes straight back into your body, so that you waste no water, right? So one of the technologies that they had of the desert peoples, the indigenous desert peoples, is this. Oh geez. Anyway, so it's that coating of this cleansing. I forget, is it clay? I can't remember exactly what it's made out of, but this cleansing material that Binti is wearing, it's reddish, stops this Venus from. It kills everyone else but her, because she's the only one from that people. Right? She's like the first to ever go to the space university. Umza University is what it is. And anyway, so I mean, just as a contrast to everything I'm talking about, that's why I'm reciting Binti's kind of basic plot line. And so the Medusa, and then Binti, the Medusa can't actually harm Binti because of it, because its super powerful abilities are basically, it's like meet its kryptonite in the bathing practices of the African indigenous woman. And then Binti eventually says, why is this happening? And they discuss and they talk it out. They do diplomacy. And Binti learns about their culture. The Medusa learns about the indigenous human African culture of the Himba. And Binti eventually goes, so the colonized person goes to negotiate peace, finally, between the humans and the the alien creatures, right? The alien civilization. So, and the salvation is not winning some grand war, right? Using lightsaber good and using the eugenically manufactured psionic powers or force or mind melding is basically Frank Herbert and George Lucas tripping too much acid and then writing stories and going, oh, what if I had this spice that comes out of the butt of a giant worm that I'm hallucinating because I'm eating too much, ivermectin coated worms? And then you're like, oh shit, you know what? Oh man, what if this giant worm pooped this stuff that I like put in my mouth and it makes me fucking trip like I'm doing mushrooms laced with ayahuasca? Oh man, that'll be cool. Holy shit, yeah, fuck yeah. And then that's, and what if I feel like I'm one with the universe and I can see everything, and that's why I'm one with the force. Also, some random, I follow John Lennon and white people doing Eat, Pray, Love in India, and I gonna appropriate a bunch of Asian culture and throw it into my Star Wars now. So what if I'm like, I'm one with the force and some kind of Hindu, Shinto, natural Zen Buddhist, it flows through us and between us, me and the tree and the rock. But what if that I get Asian superpower? I get like Asian Buddhist Zen superpower from my psionic acid tripping, and then I save Asia with my laser sword and my capacity to fire within a millimeter grouping a X-wing laser shot at 10 miles. What if I trip so much acid and I go to Woodstock and I fall out of a tree listening to Jimi Hendrix, and that like I crack my head on the side like an apple falling on my white savior Newton's great genius. I fall down and crack my head on the side of this rock at Woodstock, and then I wake up with superpowers and I can shoot lasers and blow up space Russia. I'm sorry, the Death Star. I'm sorry, the Empire. Right? What if I can kill Heinlein's insectile space bugs so good with my pistol and like Han and my samurai wielding abilities, and I make my helmet in the shape of a samurai helmet, right? And I rip off Akira Kurosawa's The Hidden Fortress, right? As George Lucas admitted to. And then I say nothing about Empire, actually. I waste my time, in fact. Actually, I have so many people watching Star Wars, not getting it, but thinking they're white saviors, signing up to go kill Emperor Palpatine and kill stormtroopers because Americans believe that Iraqis, Russians, and Chinese are stormtroopers. What if I actually don't do anything useful with my white man written stories about how I'm going to save the universe? What if that happens? Nah, that probably won't happen. I'm sure that nuclear war with Taiwan, because 70% of people believe America is the greatest country that's ever existed, and that they're all Luke Skywalkers. I'm sure that totally won't make an impact. I'm sure that the John Waynes and all of the bootstrap cowboys and all of the good white guy with a gun, and I'm sure all of the Marvel Captain Star Spangled Underpants and billionaire philanthropist arms dealer playboy Elon Musk's The Real World Iron Man. There's literally an article written in like the New Yorker called The Real Iron Man or Wired. I'm sure that worship of capitalist, imperialist, military industrial complex complicity, which Iron Man has and which is reflected in Elon Musk, and that is the highest grossing movie of all time, I'm sure that won't impact the perpetuation of military industrial complex that's going to threaten nuclear war and also kill millions of people across the world and be the biggest thing standing in the way of global socialism, peace, cooperation, climate change, dealing with COVID-19, dealing with global inequality, dealing with global racism, dealing with all of these problems, all the things that these. Dune is a ecological novel. It can't be ecological if it doesn't deal with white supremacy, Western supremacy, and Western hegemony. It can't. It's bullshit. It's a bullshit artist story at the end of the day, because that's where we're at. We're at a place where everyone thinks they're fucking Luke. Everyone thinks they're Paul Atreides. Everyone in America thinks, left, right, and center, that they are the fucking Jesus Christ with cowboy characteristics, the Jesus Christ with the Commander Shepard. They all think they're Mass Effect global fucking world policemen. Everyone thinks that they're fucking Call of Duty saviors. Everyone thinks that they're Battlefield 2042. Everyone thinks they're Ready Player One saviors. Everyone thinks they're fucking Neo, and they don't. A lot of people, sadly, it's better, but they still don't fucking get it. They're gonna save the world. They're gonna save the universe, right? By individually or together, maybe they'll be the one in Expanse. I want to be the one that kills Marcos Inaros, right? I want to be that's what happens at the end. I want to be the guy that kills Xi Jinping. That's what Americans are. I want to be the guy that saves the Uyghur. I want to go to Afghanistan and blow them up. Or maybe I'll just like I'll reshare a lot of Adrian Zen's written Jacobin, New York Times, and BBC articles. Or maybe I'll support the Chinese. I'll write an article supporting the Chinese people against their government, supporting Taiwan in a war against China from the left, right? That you can't write, I would argue, you cannot write an anti-imperialist novel that does not directly indict Western exceptionalism, the United States directly, Western supremacy, and does not acknowledge. The most ecological novel is one that actually tells the truth about Asia and China in particular, and the rest of the world. And they exist, not in English, not in the New York Times bestseller list. They're not on Amazon Prime. They're not in the Netflix. No, there are some on Amazon Netflix, but they're not made in the US. They're made somewhere else. The most ecological, climate change, vegan, anti-imperialist, socialist, left stories, movies, and games will never be mass consumed in the West. I hope that they will one day, but they're not right now. Because why? Because they don't tell you the story you want to hear. The closest is Riddick. Riddick was one of the closest. And that's why Riddick got a 34% approval rating from the audiences. Because, and so I'm gonna end because it's 113. But just to go back to why I'm gonna still stand my Vin Diesel. The reason why people don't hate, just similar to Binti, which is a story of mutual cooperation written by somebody who does not identify as a white first world dude. Very important. All right. The reason why let me get, what the fuck is it? What the fuck is it? Yeah, Riddick, yeah. So the reason why Binti, I would argue, is not being made into is a story is it doesn't tell a white savior Western exceptionalist story. It doesn't have to be a white person in charge. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is a Western exceptionalist white savior story. He's not even a white guy, but it's still a story of how America is going to save the world, right? The reason why Riddick gets ridiculed and isn't appreciated, right, is because it centers space prisoners, craps on the space slave catchers, the police and the world police, and the space US military, the necromongers. Mass Effect, they're doing more Mass Effect. You know why? Because Mass Effect tells you the Starship Troopers, Dune, Star Wars, Luke Skywalker story. It tells you the story of saving the universe through fighting bad guys. Going to places and saving them by fighting the bad guys with Western coded, it doesn't have to be white, but it has to be West civilization coded people. It can't be like Africa or space China. It can't be like highly strong centralized government with very Chinese coded language, art, costumes, buildings, right? That can't be the story because that breaks the mind of the Westerner. Riddick universe is better, and it has to be Western, it has to be democratic, and it has to be if it's not democratic like the Fremen, it has to be open to becoming democratic, right? America has to save Afghanistan from its anti-women, no women's rights, its oppression of women, its lack of human rights, right? But you see, the good we support the Afghan people overthrowing the Afghan government, right? So you have to be, that's okay. But usually those people, right, have to be led by Paul Atreides, right? Like the Fremen, they have to be led by Luke. Like Luke shows up on. You have the Ewoks, right? But the Ewoks are led by the great white savior, Luke Skywalker, right? Who are all backward, racist-coded Vietnamese, right? Or Miwoks, indigenous people, right? Oh, Luke is here. It's the Hawaiians are all barbarians who just want to eat the white people, savages, and then or either that or they think that you're God. Like Lono, it's the white savior, white God narrative for the indigenous peoples, right? The stupid Indian superstitious cannibals, right? Worshipping the god and then they want to eat him, right? That's Pirates of the Caribbean, that's Johnny Depp, that's Native Hawaiians, that's the story of what happened here. It's misunderstanding of a lot of things. It's not what actually happened. And then that's also the story of the Ewoks. They want to eat Luke, they want to burn Luke, but then they're so stupid, right? If the Vietnamese are the Ewoks, they're so stupid little monkeys, right? They're so stupid, those little Asian coded bears, that I can just like trick them into thinking that I'm God, and then I'm gonna lead them as a white man to salvation. But without my help, they would have just been crushed by the outside. Not like the Vietnamese have their own history and their education is better. They're actually smarter than Americans. Luna is much smarter than any Western white leftist I've ever fucking encountered. And they can liberate themselves, and they don't need Luke. They don't need you telling the Vietnamese how to deal with Western sanctions. And oh, your country's not socialist because you had some people that have a capitalist Starbucks business somewhere. They don't need any Luke Skywalkers in Vietnam. But that's the narrative that the Ewoks in Star Wars 6 tells. You can't get past it. Americans would hate it. If the Ewoks without the help of any white guy flew an X-Wing and blew up the Star Destroyer, and the Ewoks were actually not stupid little backwards animals, right? But were actually like, oh, you're talking your pee-pee doo-doo language, racist shit that they have against indigenous people. That's white people just coming up with alien languages that sound like what they think of as backwards, barbaric, primitive, eating people, cannibal, white people are gods that they worship because they're so stupid. If the Ewoks were an eloquent, intelligent, like Jar Jar Binks crossed with Ewoks, but actually smarter than Luke, right? More competent, able to fight their own wars, even with less technology, but able to defeat the Empire alone. Americans would hate it as much as they hate Riddick, or just disregard it, or they actually would hate it more, because that wouldn't be an accurate representation. But George Lucas is a clown and a coward, and everybody who worships him in Star Wars is greatly diseducated. The thumbs down on Chronicles of Riddick because the West is full of racist cop and U.S. military stands that don't like sympathetic people of color, prisoners, and Muslims coexisting peacefully with other religions in the space Middle East when the U.S. was demonizing them to make war there. Helion is home to many people of many cultures, and we managed to coexist. Speaking of Afghanistan, a war based on anti-Muslim racism and so-called salvation. The savage, guy with a sand N-word with a towel on his head with a bomb strapped to his chest, that was for the right wing. And the noble savage, oh, the poor women and the children, we gotta save them from with our bombs and our guns and 37 million people displacement and murder and slitting their throat with Australia. Helion is known to many cultures, and we managed to coexist in peace, united by a purity of spirit. Imam, one of the most likable characters in Riddick. This is why people don't like Riddick, because Riddick is not a white guy. He's Vin Diesel. He doesn't really like the United States. He's very like anti-Western. Oh, Vin Diesel went to prison. He's like a really bad. He's like he just went to prison. He's a convict. I heard he's really terrible. Blah 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 blah. And also, the most likable character isn't a white guy. It's not a Christian guy. It's not just a white guy. It's a person that is not socialized and coded as a Westerner. It's a black Muslim person that's coded as a Middle Easterner or a North African. And America was being led to war, as you're led to war to China right now. 70%. To be clear, CIA and Western military industrial complex and your ruling class's propaganda is working very well against you. That's why you're all 70% ready to go start nuclear war with Taiwan. With China, which is Taiwan is a part of it, but you think that it's not because you're an idiot. So you're diseducated. So this guy. I get upset when I think about this level of it's terrifying and it's horrifying and it's incredibly frustrating. This character is the most likable character in the entire movie, and then Vin is not white and he's not there. And the main character in Riddick as well. The main character in Riddick is, as I brought up before, not a white guy, right? He's prisoner convict coded, being led around by a white John Wayne looking guy, right? Johns is a prison guard. He's a cop. He's a prison guard. He's white, blue eyes, he's very traditionally white guy looking, right? He's got the black, or the non-white guy on a chain, right? The prisoner. And you're made to kind of think, oh yeah, well, that's the good guy, right? He's the white guy with a gun. That's like me. I'm Luke Skywalker. He's Luke Skywalker with a gun. He's John Wayne. He's Clint Eastwood. He's Colden. He's Holden in The Expanse. He's the white guy on the Rocinante saving the fucking universe with contact with super advanced intelligent aliens, hacking the brains of hacking his brain and giving him super secret knowledge to stop wars and fight glorious battles against space global south, right? Oh, that's me. I'm the white cop. I'm the world police. I'm here to save everyone with my gun or my starship laser or what the fuck ever, right? And then you learn later on, actually, he's not there to save anyone. He's somebody that is enslaving the prisoners who are who? The non-white people of the United States, the space United States, that are being caught and thrown by 2.5 million into continued slavery, which is the optimum form of capitalism in the prison industrial complex to make Amazon vegan and non-vegan Whole Foods cheese for 25 cents an hour for the rest of their life. Like, disproportionate Native Hawaiians are mass arrested in schools at the highest rate in any state of the United States. So John's character is made to be, the white savior is made to look like the white savior and then becomes basically one of the worst character. Riddick is not a good guy, to be clear. Like, he's killed a lot of people, he's done a lot of things, but he's kind of done these things to kind of survive a racist universe. His entire planet and his entire species, his entire race has been annihilated. He's like the last surviving Furian, right? So Riddick and Binti, they share a lot because Riddick, right, Binti is a member of a historically colonized coded and colonized written, both the actual people and also in the fiction of the world, the science fiction of the world, is a historically colonized people, not a colonizer, right? And Riddick is not as violent as Binti. Riddick is more violent than Binti, but Riddick is also a historically colonized person in the face of, and he doesn't fight for the police, he doesn't fight for the military. He's being dragged around by the police and the prisoners that are the same thing. Slave catchers, which is what America's police forces were based on, if you know history, but most of America doesn't, and they never will. They're banning critical race theory. Britain has banned teaching white privilege and capitalism, and 30 plus schools have banned even thinking about racism being a problem in the United States, let alone racialized capitalism. Marxism is illegal. History is illegal to teach. Economics is illegal to teach in America. So we got to do our best. So that's why Riddick is a character that is, and Riddick is not good, but the white savior character that's put up there as the Luke turns out to be a drug user that's like arresting people for using drugs. White people use more drugs than black and non-white people in the United States, yet non-white people are still mass arrested at a higher rate for these drug use, despite them not even, it's either equal or slightly more for white people, but they don't get arrested for it. So John is shooting up all of his drugs. He's a dope addict, arresting other people, selling them off to get his cut of white settler colonial capitalism, right? Like as you do as a white person in the United States, that's what it's all built on, right? Arresting stolen people, stolen land, put the stolen people on the stolen land, make a mountain, make a good, make $10,000 capturing slaves, catching black people and selling them back to their slave masters to get enough to buy your own slaves, get your plot of land, build your wealth, and then a few decades, centuries from now, your descendants will be like Biden and Musk and all of the disproportionately white descendants of racialized capitalism with millions and billions of dollars, and then you run the planet with global hegemony and white supremacist capitalist military industrial complexes, and that's how you got America. That's where you get to today. So this is a story of America, right? The actual story, which is white people don't save anything. They're fucking selfish assholes that get people killed. Johns gets a lot of people killed, fucks everyone else over. He's like, we might as well like feed the little girl to the alien, monster creatures. And Riddick is not the best guy, but he's like, wow, that's fucked up, man. So it's a story that flips that whole narrative on its head, and that's why people like. And with Chronicles, it gets even more intense, right? Because you have this entire space. As I said, the space Roman U.S. Empire launches an airstrike, slaughters everyone for resources, like Riddick's planet and the people before being dumped in a prison system. And then you join the necromonger religion and pillage with us, or you die. Like, people of color now overrepresented in the U.S. military. So again, you don't have to be white. You can be like Kamala or Obama or like my family who are a military. Join the military after having Hawaii military destroyed, military occupied, and our culture and language banned. And then much of Native Hawaiians overrepresented in the U.S. military. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Colonized Samoans overrepresented in the U.S. military. He's the number one recruiting tool for the U.S. military, right? So as G.I. Joe, one of the highest paid actors, making all the recruiting the CIA, with G.I. fucking Joe, he's the fucking most cop military dude in the Fast series. And the reason why Vin and Dwayne had a split is because, I don't have all the receipts on this, but basically Dwayne was like, But the police and the U.S. military are good though. And Dune's like, fuck no, that's not what I'm doing here. And then we're not working together anymore. In fact, I'm not going to be in all these movies. So anyways, so the space Roman and U.S. coded empire against, right? And it's not like a one-to-one thing, but it's not exactly like, they don't have American flags on the side of these troopers, but the representation as Greek, Roman, as the antiquities worshipped, like the worshipped ultra white people of the West, Greeks and Romans. And then you have Europeans, and then you have Americans. And Americans like, well, we're the best. We're the as Karl Marx said, the Americans are the epitome, the most spiritually vital, the most vitality-filled, entrepreneurial, strongest race, because the blood of the Celtic, the Germanic, and the Anglo-Saxon, all of our European white blood strains have been hybridized into the perfect. It's Karl Marx. He said this. Engels as well have been hybridized into the perfect, or the utmost human specimen of the American. And that's why they're so good at everything. That's why they're surpassing Europe in industry, industriousness, vitality, their power, their might, their empires growing so great. He said that. I use him because, the center, he's a leftist, right? So the center and the right, worse than that. And so Riddick takes, okay, well, you want to talk about your Greek, your Roman, your Germanic, your Celtic, your Teutonic, and now your American greatness. Let's make them all the fucking bad guys. Like, actually. Because against the Muslim non-white people that are peacefully coexisting, right? Muslim, Christian, Jewish coexisting on New Mecca, a planet in space that has many different religions, right? It's speaking of the Fremen, right? To compare Riddick to Dune, right? In the Fremen in Dune are, they're noble savage, right? Oh, they're very nice people out there with their blue eyes, because they're extra white inside, because they're brown outside but they're white inside because they got nice blue eyes like me, right? Because I smoked a lot of dope. Now I don't know if that's specifically why, but I mean, but the Fremen have their but they have to be led by a great white savior like Paul, right? They have to be used, and also it's a danger to them. In the plot, it actually goes that these Fremen needed to be led by the eugenically perfect fusion of the Atreides and the Bene Gesserit breeding program bloodlines for psionic power, intellectual power, military strategic power, right? The perfect moral power, which is morally better, morally superior. These are all arguments that the John Swinton, labor organizer, made. Moral, political, ethical, industrial, and genetic, biological superiority. These are arguments that the leftists made. New York organizer John Swinton, circa like 1870. So in the eugenics program, the Freemen have a lot of good things about their culture, but they're not good enough. They need to be led, like the Mujahideen, like the Afghani people, right? And so that's a very different story, right? White people showing up and then fighting the evil gay Russians, like Vladimir Harkonnen, the Asian communists, with our white-led desert people, indigenous desert people, right? That's very different to the indigenous desert people of Helion, right? Helion Prime. In Chronicles, they are themselves, again, very important. This is why the Ewoks is bullshit. It's a white dude story. Because in Helion Prime, this is Helion Prime before, right? They have peaceful coexistence between Muslims independently, right? They have peaceful coexistence between Muslims, Christians, and Jews, right? They have an advanced street civilization. They're trading, right? In the desert, again, right? Because we love our Dune, right? Minimal violence, not conquest, win-win cooperation, mutual trade. I envision New Mecca as a mega nexus in the galactic Silk Road. The one Betelgeuse, one one Betelgeuse, one road initiative. One belt, one road. The galactic Milky Way that's actually a Silk Road of peaceful win-win cooperation, mutual understanding, different but equal, right? Different but equal, right? Not everyone has to be my way, and me on top, morally superior, economically superior. Your language is my language. You speak Roman, you speak British, you speak French, or you die. Because if you don't, you're evil and you deserve to die, right? And no, the new Mecca of Riddick is very important. People miss this, but then this is why I say it's like, because Chronicles got really got downranked, in the US. Despite it, again, the quality of entertainment is, it's an action movie. It's what the fuck, like Dune, like Star Wars. It's just some action movie, It's just some action movie. But it kind of got a lot of thumbs down for a lot of not Riddick, no, Chronicles. Which Chronicles? Riddick is different. Chronicles of Riddick. Fuck. Riddick was closer to the first one. Fuck, can't find it. Anyways, here it is. Chronicles of Riddick. So it's a sci-fi action movie, right? Yeah, 29%. Actually, honestly, didn't do too bad. But I remember the critics really didn't like it at the time. But compared to Dune, right, or Star Wars, which have like 90%, like Dune, and I mean, Rotten Tomatoes is not the only. Rotten Tomatoes is not the only arbiter of reality, but it's just one of many. Dune got a very favorable rating, right? It's like 91%. It was super high, right? To be honest, like Dune I like Denis Villeneuve, so I want Jason and Denis and Oscar Isaacs to make more movies, but the level, it's a beautiful picture, but it's also, the script of Dune is just slow and it's kind of boring. I mean, I'll be totally honest, it's kind of fucking boring, actually. I wish they could I wish it was a little more written like modern post 2000s stories, but it's not like The Expanse in that sense. But it is beautiful, and it is a historic legacy. But as I've been saying, the legacy is very problematic. And but the reason why this one in particular, Chronicles, is not favored, and it's still not remembered, right, is because the sand, non-white, Muslim, or Muslim coded peoples, the indigenous peoples, are independently advanced. They have actual racial economic equality. They have peaceful trade. They don't need the help of any white saviors. Riddick is not a white savior. Riddick hates the space Western world, right? They killed everyone that he knows and loves. He's very anti-heroic in that sense. And the main character is a Muslim. The most likable character is a Muslim, and then who shows up to slaughter them all, right? So that's the opposite of. That's different from, these noble Muslim people, but they need me to lead them to salvation, right? That's the white savior, that's the light side salvation, light side Messiah narrative, and that's a major difference. Space Road U.S. Empire launches an airstrike, slaughters everyone for resources. Riddick's planet and the people before being dumped in prison system. If you don't join the religion, if you don't become Christian, you don't join the U.S. military. You suffer. If you don't join the U.S. military in America, you're not going to make $180,000 a year. You're not going to get your cost of living paid. If you don't join the police or the military, most jobs in the United States are shit. And even if you don't join the U.S. military, you're still working for the U.S. military, because every district of the United States, every state of the United States has billions of dollars, if not millions and billions of dollars poured into it. So you could be working at just a random plant. You're making F-22 Raptor chips. You're making, AUKUS submarine nuclear parts. You're doing tech support for the military. If you work for Silicon Valley, you work for the military because they all have contracts with the military. Any of the big techs. You work for Wall Street, you're working with the U.S. military. The U.S. military defends global capitalism that has headquartered on Wall Street. If you do accounting, finance, tech support, marketing, almost anything in the United States, you're either directly working with the military and its industrial complex, or you're a subcontractor of it. So, and that's the way because Americans are not standing against that, not en masse. You got Danny Haifong, got a handful of usually non-white, Danny Haifong, Vietnamese actual journalists. You've got Black Agenda Report. You have to get to Vijay Prashad. It's not American. You got a handful of peace activists, anti-war activists. You got Mike Preisner, Abby Martin. You got a handful, and then everyone else is over there either not saying anything or backing U.S. military. So that the U.S. and the West, as a general, they are all necromongers in that sense. The necromongers who do go to vegan ayahuasca cleanses, do yoga, right? You could be a necromonger with a Black Lives Matter and a Trans Lives Matter flag on the side of your Tomahawk missile, right? As I made that point many times. So, but that's the narrative that's being destroyed in this story, which is like, no, you're not the good guy, you're the bad guy. You know, and until you stand against that empire, you will continue to be that bad guy. You're not save anything. You're not going to save anything. Kind of like the for-profit war, bombing, genocide, exploitation of Syria to Iraq to Afghanistan to Palestine, as the U.S. and allies continue to engage in disproportionately of Muslims. So, you know, and what happens is it's realistic in Riddick, right? Unlike in Dune, right? The evil Russians, right? In Dune, right? The Harkonnens, evil Russians, right? Come, they kill Freeman, right? The Harkonnens, evil space empire, the space Emperor Palpatine, right? The space evil communists, and they're also gay. That's why everybody's uncle, because it's implied that Vladimir Harkonnen doesn't have any children. You know, he's like a Disney gay-coded, queer-coded evil person, you know, like Scar and Jafar. So because of that, because that's America. America is homophobic, anti-communist, pro-capitalist, imperialist white saviors. So Vladimir Harkonnen shows up and he kills, right? He and the Harkonnens and the Sardaukars, they slaughter. I'm going to kill all the Freemen. Kill them all, right? It's the Asian coded, communist coded, Harkonnens that are the bad guys, right? And that we have to kill. And Paul Atreides and Leto Atreides, the daddy, right? Everybody's daddy that, you know, everybody's getting thirsty for on the Twitter, Instagram. Oscar Isaac. I mean, that's fine. You do you. But like the father of the white savior is talking about, we have to learn the ways, and they're if you listen closely, they say, you know, what Leto Atreides actually says, right, is that we have to gain the desert power. So actually, they're still there for power. But we respect them, and you know, like look at Jason Momoa and Duncan Idaho. You really respect the Fremen, right? They're really beautiful people. Paul's like, oh, if you will have me, I would be so happy to learn your ways, and I respect your people so much, and you know. But ultimately, what he's gonna do is run the fucking universe, and also they're a danger. By the end of Dune, it's like, oh no, their jihad is run amok, and now they're a danger, and so now we have to kill all of the space Muslims, right? Just like this is what America has done, right? It's basically played out its Dune white savior Western exceptionalist imperialist plot, which is we create a quagmire by backing extremist parts of peaceful Muslim, and actually they had a lot of women's rights in places like Afghanistan at one point. You know, Iran, Palestine had a lot of coexistence and peace, women's rights. They were moving towards socialism, electricity, access, all the indicators of what we want, right? Development, electricity access, technological industrialization, moving towards universal healthcare systems, all the things that I talk about, Hawaii and Libya and all the. And then America shows up to save them, and then they get bombed into the Stone Age. 1 in 3 people don't have electricity. Far-right extremism everywhere. Women's rights thrown out the window after America and the West gets itself involved, right? There to save them, right? And so that's what Riddick is like. No, the people of the desert, the Fremen of the desert, the Afghan people, the Iraqi, you know, the people in Palestine, they were perfectly fine. They're not perfectly fine. They have problems like any civilization, like China, Hawaii, Libya, Iran, Russia. These places all have internal problems, contradictions that they have to work out, right? They're not perfect, but some of them are moving in a better direction, right? Internally, struggling internally between forces on the left, on the right, and you know, conservative and you know, more liberal forces internally moving, right? They're doing. Some of them are doing better. Hawaii was doing very well, right? High literacy rate, electricity, inventing 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea style submarines when America's dreaming them up in Jules Verne science fiction, right? All the things I talk about. And then the U.S. gets involved, the West gets involved to save them from their savagery and their lack of Christianity, their lack of capitalism, their lack of Western liberal democracy. And that's the lie. That is the deep lie that Americans and the West still believes. And that is the primary contradiction that
under, you know, racialized imperialist capitalism. That is not addressed, and that's what Riddick tries to address. It doesn't, as you know, you can't make a movie in the West that actually tells the truth, period. You can't make a game or a movie that fully tells the truth. I try my best, but you know, nobody would buy it. I have to wrap Neofeud in a lot of candy coating of cyberpunk and entertainment. I don't just say this is a story about Hawaii and your racialized capitalist imperial shithole America destroyed our most successful socialist and racially equal country in the world. I don't say that because nobody would buy that game, because most people that have any money, and I don't speak enough of non-Western languages to tell the full truth and still exist and, you know, pay for lights and housing and feed and not starve, you know, and not have, like, you know, lack of material needs under capitalism. We still live there. So, but Riddick gets very, you know, as close as close to the truth, and that's why a lot of people don't remember it, because it's not a story about saving those people. It's a story about Euro people showing up and destroying those people. And Riddick doesn't save those people either. Nobody saves those people. The people just, Riddick helps a few people, but they're not saved. Space Roman US Empire launches an airstrike, slaughters everyone for the resources, right? Just like the space US military. 300, also another one, right? Again, this is Greek and Roman era, Zack Snyder, US Hollywood, which is the military industrial complex capitalist shit world with entertainment characteristics. 300, glorified Western white hyper-militarized society fighting for freedom despite being a fascist monoculture of soldiers plus wives, as fundamentally virtuous and good, and versus gender fluid non-white Middle Eastern peoples as fundamentally evil and corrupting. That's the story of 300. They literally slaughter a disabled person for being disabled. It's not only do they kill the disabled people, the Spartans throw out eugenically imperfect white bodies. They just throw them out. Or not imperfect Spartan bodies get dumped. It's on screen in this movie. This baby was not strong enough. They throw it away, right? So speaking of eugenics programs, right? Speaking of Dune's breeding, Bene Gesserit breeding programs, and the debased blood and the optimized blood of the Anglo-Teutonic Celtic fusion in America, right? That unites the entire Western world. That eugenics project, that is also the morally the physically disabled person in this movie is shown to finally be morally, his moral character. He betrays the Spartans, right? There's a point where the character could have been redeemed and said, well, I could be disabled and I could, you know, I might not be born with a perfectly white, straight-jawed, abbed face. My straight-jawed face and my perfect airbrushed men's health abs and stuff, right? I don't look like a perfect white man specimen, like that would have made Starship Troopers author Heinlein proud, John Swinton, labor organizer, Karl Marx proud, Joe Biden proud, Americans and Europeans, Louis XIV proud. That would have made everyone and the actual Spartans proud, right? I might not be born with a perfect body, but I am not an evil person. I'm just somebody who has different body shape and color and size and etc., right? And there's a point where you could have redeemed that character by going like, there's a point where he could choose to betray or not betray the Spartans, right? And then it turns out, no, your genetic, your biological, physical substrate, right? Your immutable, your out of your control characteristics, skin color, body shape, arm length, lack of, your lack of all your fingers and toes, all these things that you can't choose. Those also make you stupid and evil. That's the narrative of 300. And so he turns out to be bad. And being gay, black, and Asian and Muslim makes you, you're a debased, degenerate, despicable human being. And that's why the Persians, like the gay Russians, right? Remember Frank Herbert? Have to be exterminated. The gay Asian, debased degenerates must be exterminated. That's Frank Herbert. That's Heinlein. That is 300. That's this movie. And that's all. And then Snyder's film. Now Snyder is more overt with this. Okay, Snyder of course directed all the Batmans, right? And Sucker Punch. So this person is evil. And it's very important because the Muslim non-white person in this 300 is in direct contrast to the Muslim non-white peoples in Riddick. right? Again, it's right. Very likable, the most ethical, the most moral, the most likable person in this show. And also it's not because they're genetically superior, unlike in 300, unlike in Dune, unlike Paul Atreides, right? The Imam in Riddick is not morally a good person because he's been bred. He has all of the problematic DNA and the darkness and the gayness genetically bred out of him, like the Bene Gesserit in Dune, right? Or like the 300 Spartan Romans, right? He's a good person because he's been surrounded by a healed, indigenous, advanced civilization of peaceful coexistence, between Yajo, Alkebulan, and Hanuna, or Asia, Africa, Turtle Island, in a space Mecca on the Silk Road, with Christian, a trading port, with Christian, trading spaceport with Christian, Jewish, Muslim, and other peoples coexisting, right? And because he's in going back to civilizational healing, because he's existed in a healed culture, not because his skin color, not because he's got X amount of these chromosomes and he's got the good genes, right? And he's gone through a breeding hybridization program that the Nazis would have applauded, like in Dune, which is Paul Atreides is the result of a Nazi-style eugenics program. That's why he has these special powers and psionics and all these things. They come. Part of it is the spice, but part of it is that's part of the story is Paul's mother was supposed to have a woman so that they could finally make the perfect specimen to continue the eugenics program. Remember that. It's not because of any special blood or midichlorians or your whiteness or whatever. It's because Imam is just like existing in a culture that is not malicious, like based on mass violence and then disinformation and then manufacturing gender, race, sexual orientation, color, and other artificial hierarchies internally in order to continue to manufacture gross violence based for the minority of people, domination of the lives and resources of the majority of people, which is what Europe has had for just centuries and centuries. And so that's a very important difference between Riddick as well and all these white dude books and stories. And Trump just ran on the overt racism, right? America, again, is more than half of the schools are banning interrogating. Anything that makes white people feel uncomfortable is literally in the letter of the law illegal in Texas and 28 plus other states. So America is racist to the core. I mean, it's there, whether overtly, quietly, subconsciously, everyone is anti-Asian racist, almost every single one. And then anti-black, huge amounts, anti-indigenous, huge amount. Everybody's afraid of the Latin black and the black nationalism and black ethno states coming and killing white people is a running narrative across center, right, and left circles right now. And Trump ran on this deep Westernness and whiteness that has to be undone. And Snyder helped foment it with anti-immigrant Islamophobia. Trump ran on, we're going to ban, these Muslims are coming over and they're murderers and terrorists. We got to kick them out. Muslim ban, 7 countries. And Mexicans are coming over and they're all rapists and murderers. And they're going to come to your nice white suburb and kill you. Zack Snyder's movie, Dawn of the Dead, another movie, is people in a nice suburb being with Muslims jump cut between zombies invading the suburb, coming for the women and the children. And you have to defend them with the police and the military and get a gun from Remington or Lockheed Martin or Smith & Wesson, right? That's the narrative, and that's, and this is okay, and then that's what happened. And that's what happened, right? And that's what happened. So Riddick, just as an example, I'm not saying this just because I want to say, I think that all, to come back to where I started, I think that all of these movies are entertaining. Politics, meta-narratives, worldviews installed by watching them aside, I think all these movies, right? All these movies that I just put up, Dune, Star Wars, Expanse, are entertaining. I've watched all these movies at least one time. Well, Dune just came out, so I watched it one time. So it's nothing to do with how entertaining they are. In fact, the more entertaining a piece of imperialist military industrial complex white supremacist propaganda is, the more entertaining that it is, the more effective and thereby the more destructive and harmful that it is. A very unentertaining Star Wars can do less total damage instilling white savior and Western exceptional and military industrial complex enabling beliefs and mindsets, right? If Star Wars and Dune and Expanse were terrible shows, and like the only thing you could watch was Riddick and like Chinese and Space Sweepers, which is an agent, or the Iron Mask, and all the movies that I bring up, Reservation Dogs. If the only entertaining shows were not Western exceptionalist stories, right? Like this one, the world would be, oh man, you mean I have to watch it? Okay. Oh man. But while you're watching it, you're having new things. You're getting some of the metaphysical and the dialectical understanding of Russia and China, right? It's not about how entertaining it is. It's about what is being installed inside of your psyche, your mind, your heart, even what you feel and what you react and what makes you, what triggers you. It's like literally when people tell you absurdities, they're preparing for atrocities, as I think it was Voltaire that said it, and USCIA uses that. That's why they bring up these stories of forced slavery in Xinjiang and cotton picking, right? It's because they know, because the stories of your own, taking the sins of the United States that and you want to undo because that's in your heritage. You project that out there. It's part of the projection. You project it out into someone else, and then you say, well, they're doing it too. They're doing it. It's not me. And then that assuages some of the work that should be done inside of interrogating your own roots and your own ancestry and your own country and who you are and who your country is. And now you can project it outwards. And it's very useful for especially liberal and left, this edge of the spectrum, who want to feel like good people. And so that stuff, and so you can actually get past that and learn by watching some of these non-Western shows. You can learn by osmosis, which is how entertainment is more powerful than even a lot of history, and educational, like formal education a lot of the time. You can get a lot of that stuff. So in fact, the level of the way that all of these Star Wars, Dunes, Expanses, and all these Western entertainment and movies they're all propaganda. Everything's propaganda, but it's all political. The way that they're more entertaining is actually why they're more damaging. Because everybody loves them and everybody watches them and everybody has nostalgia and they watch them again and again and again and again and again and again and again. And they reinforce the light side messiah, Western exceptionalist, Western supremacist, Western liberal, white-led Christian civilization as the best. And the more you watch it, the more it reinforces it. Which is why it's so dangerous, right? At the same time, that's what we have, and I have to watch them so that I can fucking criticize them. I hope that more alternate narratives, like, of course, I brought up Reservation Dogs, I brought up Binti, I brought up Riddick, lots of stuff. That's Space Sweepers was another one. Pacific Rim is very much on that kind of level. Of course, Fast 9. Fast 9 is about spoil rich pricks and against international family. Spoil rich white pricks against international family. But again, that's Vin Diesel, and he's operating outside of the United States. It's not, the US doesn't really particularly like Vin Diesel. They only figured out they could sell some Honda imports and a few, muscle cars. And Vin tricked them all into letting him put out his Fast 9 international anti-imperialist, it's propaganda ultimately. Everything's political. His alternate worldviews inside of his movies. Which is why he's gonna make. I'm really looking forward to Riddick, the next Riddick, because I think it's gonna be pretty freaking awesome. I really hope that Vin just fucking goes to China and make it better than any American movie will ever be, because America is too busy underpaying its set workers and all of its workers, and that's part of why people are being killed on the set of movies due to prop malfunctions. So America can't make any movies. It never made any good movies, period, in terms of politics. And it can't even make any movies soon. So, I just want to check the worldwide box office one more time. So, holy shit, Battle at Lake Changjin surpassed. So, it's a story actually about the, Battle at Lake Changjin is a story about the American invasion in Korea, in fact, and the Chinese support of it. So that's actually surpassed Haiman. But it's also a story, very importantly, Battle of Lake Changjin as another example, right? So, Second phase of the Korean War, the battle at Lake Changjin, is an epic historical tale. 71 years ago, the PVA entered North Korea for battle under extreme freezing situations. The troops, of course, any movie is dramatized. It's going to be from a perspective, but importantly, the United States imperial invasion of Korea to do what? Why were the United States there? Oh, that's right, to fight the evil Earth insectile hive mind Starship Trooper bugs. I'm sorry, the Chinese communists. To stop the spread of evil communism. That's why America was in everywhere, right? And the Korean War was a slaughter, a genocide, a war of aggression, the highest crime in the United Nations Geneva Conventions under the international law, above chemical weapons attacks, above killing of innocent civilians. That's why everybody gets an enemy combatant label just dropped on their body when they get shot down in Fallujah, like a 16-year-old Muslim kid. Above all of these crimes, above use of chemical weapons, torture, is wars of aggression. But nobody, the group of friends, China, Russia, Bolivia, Venezuela, Laos, Cuba, are trying to, now the counter-hegemonic actual socialist, mostly colonized, historically colonized people, are trying to, who's not in the group of friends? Europe. Who's not in the group of friends? All of our SOCDEM friends are Nordic countries. Who's not in there? Vegan, steel straw, very nice Canada. That's not in the group of friends because they're too busy taking $31 billion from Africa as we speak of resources and fucking getting Argentinian and other South Americans murdered for Canadian mining companies and being a little pet. Europe is America's poodle and Canada is America's America's moose. What's a little cute little pet? Japan is America's Shiba Inu. It does this little nuclear submarine attacks on Taiwan. India is America's animal from India that I can't think of off the top of my head. India is America's sacred cow. Not really, because they also are racist against them. But anyways, but in Korea, this is the story of, very important, this is a story of the fight against imperial occupation. Very important, right? These are all stories of white people going around the galaxy and going into other people's countries and saving them, right? World War II is a story of America making billions of dollars for Ford, Hitler had a picture of Henry Ford on his fucking wall, making mountains of money backing global fascism and capitalism against China and Russia, and then rewriting that narrative with Saving Ryan's Privates and other World War II movies, making the world think that America is the savior of the universe, right? The white World War II savior against evil Nazi fascism, as opposed to backing and supporting racist capitalism across the world and fascism across the world. Like in, AOS backed, funded, Bolivia, you fucking name it. The fascists in KMT, the fascists that killed the fascist Germany. No. We didn't totally support and back that for money and profit and because we're all racists. And Hitler used America as its model for its eugenics and Britain's slaughter of people in Africa for its gassing and holocausts. It's not. No. It's that never happened. It was just one odd Hitler. Just like it was just Trump was the one racist that misled a few Americans. Not like there's deep embedded racism and fascism all over the fucking country, all over the place in the West. So the story is not about going into other people's countries. It's a story of fucking kicking out U.S. illegal imperial occupiers. In a literal genocide, they bombed so much in Korea that there was nothing. Actual Western reporters looked out at the craters where there used to be schools, factories, all the roads that are just like shredded into pieces. All of the industrial, economic, educational institute, everything just bombed into rubble. And he said there was nothing left in Korea to bomb. And America said, we got to bomb some more. We ran out of things to bomb. Just bomb the ashes. Bomb the dead bodies of the kids. Just bomb everything. Just bomb all the fractured, pieces of their former hospitals. Just bomb it all so we can make more money killing insects, which is how the West views Asia, as I already said. So this is a story of the opposite of that, which is kicking out the imperial occupiers. Vietnam, there's no good Vietnam War movies in America, and there never will be any. You know why? Because America can't hear a story where white people didn't save Vietnam. It wasn't it was Luna and Ho Chi Minh and Luna's ancestors and Ho Chi Minh and the Vietnamese people. They didn't need any help from France. Too busy subjugating them, fucking dumping opium and narcotics into their bodies and taking out the rubber and other products, and throwing white French and British women and American women throwing like seeds out to the Vietnamese children who are all starving, like little emaciated Jack Skellington bone bodies, like, you know, National Geographic covers. Oh my God, get a little food, and then the British women clapping. Oh, look how nice we are, giving a little crumbs of bread, and here's a little rice grains for you little kids, like little birds, feeding them like little animals. It wasn't any white saviors that saved Vietnam, and that's why there will never be there was never be a Western movie made about Vietnam that tells the truth, and that's why the Ewoks is insufficient, because it still requires white people showing up and helping you, and it also doesn't code everything in a way that actually says the truth. Because nobody would watch Star Wars. Star Wars would be hated, and it would be just a little weird, hokey, low budget Star Trek ripoff that nobody cares about. If Star Wars actually tell the truth, it never will. I have to read everything into it. It's full of shit. It's 2:00. Anyway, so that's Battle of Lake Changjin. So anyway, I get off. So these are some counter narratives, right? Hai Mom is also another story. Hai Mom is a story. Again, you know this one. I've talked about it many times, but you know. It's about poverty alleviation. It's okay, like Binti. It's a woman as a main character, and it's also somebody who is learning about the history and about the poverty alleviation, and actually trying to cooperate and de-escalate, and remembering. It's a story ultimately about the Chinese internal struggle to get out from poverty, from lack of housing and healthcare and food, and you know, people like riding bikes in the mud and going from there to, you know, driving electric cars and riding in electric high-speed bullet trains within a generation. Right? There's a picture where in a village 20 years prior, there's a dad riding with no footwear with his son on his back through the a dirt path. And then 20 years later, his son is driving his father in like a electric Mercedes or something on a world-class road with like high-speed tech and infrastructure all around. And it's within decades, totally transformed, right? So anyway, so this is this movie that's it's about there's this one, and there's also People in My Homeland, and these are stories about actual, you know, practicing what the left and the West likes to talk about, which is meeting people's material conditions, you know. But that's what they're doing, and that's what they make the movies about. And then there's also the one about the Battle of Lake Changjin. It's about fighting against an imperial occupier, right? And then there's Fast 9. So, you know, thank God. Like I said, America can't. You know, Dune is down there. I mean, Dune is doing okay, but you know, Dune is down there. Black Widow is, you know, nobody cares about by Mr. American Pie. Shang-Chi is, you know, doing a little bit better, but not even close to the Chinese or Vin Diesel's movies. So, I mean, because this is the thing, most of the world, and you know, I should get off here. Most of the world doesn't actually have this. Most of the world does not think this. It's another thing you got to remember. I recommend watching that Kishore Mahbubani if you don't have a chance. If you're like academic, you just want to hear it straight from a political, straight in the political, international relations, academic, because it's all professors and it's a presentation at a university. You want to hear it like in the academic, political sense, not through all of the Silver Spook style of everything all at once, decompartmentalized science fiction, 30,000 years in the future, 37,000 years in the past, and the present, and all of the Earth all happening at the same time in my head. Because it's the only way that I can operate. Watch the Kishore Mahbubani about this. But most of the world does not run on this narrative. They don't, that's why Luna Oy was, when Peter Coffin and Luna Oy were going off about it, I think part of it is that gulf, you know? Not just Peter, lots of Western leftists going, why don't you like the American flag? Luna's like, this flag represents suffering, war, oppression, fascism, and death. I don't want to organize with people. I don't want to see this flag. That's just what it represents to me. And there's a disconnect there. It's like, why don't you love it? I mean, this is just any other flag. You know, that's the way. But that's the same thing. This is the way that people see these things, right? It's like, doesn't everybody think that Western liberal capitalist democracy, or maybe Western liberal socialism or Western socialist, eco-socialist democracy is awesome? Don't you think that Western anarcho-communism is the best? Well, whatever left, right, or center Western flavor you think. I haven't seen any problems from the U.S. military. I haven't had the military bomb me. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you haven't, right? That's not, but that, but that's part of it, right? The rest of the world, when you show up to help them, Americans don't see this. The U.S. military industrial complex, its highest forms of capitalism, hide all of that from you, right? So most of the world, they see that flag. What they see is that thing that came in and slaughtered their family, turned their village into ash, right? They see that flag. They see centuries of colonial degradation, unfair debt trapped, like being in the dark in Niger, right? They see in Bolivia, they see that people who installed fascists who massacred us in the streets, that has his foot on our neck. They see that flag. That's what they see. They don't see this. A minority of the planet, of the population of Earth, sees this, right? And that's the huge hurdle, because everybody is indoctrinated. Everybody is, including myself. Everyone is indoctrinated to believe in this light side Messiah, Western exceptionalist story. Anyway, that's the end. I didn't get as much sleep as I should have, and so I'm sure I was repeating myself a lot, but now we're done. Neofeud is a story from myself as a native Hawaiian, raised as a stormtrooper, and still half stormtrooper. I will always be, but anti-colonizer, anti-colonial, anti-imperial, anti-capitalist, anti-racist story that is, much more shrouded in cyberpunk, cool stuff. $6 billion ballers, hippie terminators fighting anti-war against the wars. Matrix agents that get reprogrammed by socialist defectors from empires. All that kind of fun. It's very Disco Elysium. It's very like Space Quest, point-and-click adventure game, Taika Waititi style humor in a cyberpunk adventure game. If that sounds interesting, if you have not picked it up but you're thinking about it, consider picking up Neofeud on Steam or itch.io. If you have a second to leave even a very short review for Neofeud, it is greatly appreciated, because it does help support us here at the Silver Spook Cooperative, and does support everything that we do here in the Silver Spook Hui, and also making Neofeud too. Also, if you have Windows or Linux, if you have Mac or Linux, you don't have Windows, you can also get Neofeud on itch.io for other systems, and you can get it on sale. You can also get Neofeud without digital rights management if you don't like DRM for whatever reason, if you don't have Steam. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Neofeud, where you can give us ongoing support for the education and edutainment that we do here, as well as for working on Neofeud 2, maintaining the Silver Spook Hui /cooperative. That is one last little note. I want to just give one quick shout out to Holly, Arjun, and Positive Synergy. Holly, of course, for all of the important modding work that is being done for all these streams, and as Positive Synergy, also for the work on the Silver Spook Hui, which is a worker. We have no bosses and no landlords, working together to produce and from our ability according to our need. And part of that is actually physically housing people. Of course, many native Hawaiians, because that's whose land we're on. But we're not saying that you can't be here if you're not native Hawaiian. That's not what indigenous nationalism or native Hawaiians did historically or believe in today. And so, but at the Silver Spook Hui, we do require housing to house the people that live here in Hawaii, because that's part of our mission, is to house everybody and do poverty alleviation of basic needs. And so here, I'm delaying because I want to get this on the screen. So here's some images of the latest in the Silver Spook Hui that is supported by all your Patreon donations. So this is a image of the kitchen, the new kitchen that was recently finished with the help of Positive Synergy. Kind of took it upon himself. He's another native Hawaiian and longtime friend and brother of mine, also known as Kama. He has a Twitch stream as well. has been helping as well as Holly Argent to basically redo this area that was very rundown and dilapidated. Or not dilapidated. It was just needed some work. Let's put it that way. It was livable, just like, it just needed some fixing up. And so yeah. So anyway, that's part of what these are part of what. And so some of the money that going to this is coming through the Patreon to maintain the housing for the Native Hawaiians that live here. Let me see if I can just get another. Okay, here you go. Yeah, here. So here's the original one, real fast. Okay, here's the original one, and then here's the after one. So I think it's a pretty big. It's a lot brighter. Anyways, so thanks a lot to Positive Synergy for all the physical and other labor that went into working on this. Again, from ability according to need. So it's not like you have to work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, or you're fired. And if you don't get your capitalist validation dollar units and pay it to Silver Spook landlord, then you get kicked out by police violence and legal lawfare. No, it's just we house people. But if you have the ability, then you're asked to please help us out with the material, with whatever production you can give, whatever production value, as Marx would say, you can give to the collective or to other people as well. You're asked to give. That's your kuleana. Anyways, you can also support us at so if you want to support that, you can support that action at the Patreon again at patreon.com/Neofeud. You also get access to the Silver Spook Discord, and you also get access to the Silver Spook Discord and the updates on Neofeud 2. You can follow at Silver Spook Games at Octodon Social. Octodon is on Mastodon, which is a decentralized, federated, non-capitalist controlled social media platform where you can follow and you can not have giant billionaire capitalist Silicon Valley, DOD, and Wall Street elites determining what you see and don't see, which is the case. When you log into Twitter, you look on the right side is all, Wall Street and DC propaganda. It's all shit. It's about, let's go back to Afghanistan. On the side I saw millennials and Gen Z are fighting each other. 37-year-olds are terrified of the 20-year-old Gen Z, and their politics is trying to cause generation gap, age divides to stop cross-generational solidarity from base generations, and it's just this garbage that comes up here because that's what Twitter's job is to, as like every big tech company in the West is there to be part of the military industrial capitalist complex that owns the governments and the people. So do follow Silver Spook Games while we have access to the Death Star satellites, because we do have reach there that we don't have elsewhere. I wish it wasn't that way, but that's the way that it is. And so you can follow at Silver Spook Guy, and you can follow at Silver Spook Games for the games related stuff, minus the and silver because Man and White ran out of vowels. You can also follow Terminus C. Terminus Cyberstar is a cyberpunk game in the vein of Deus Ex System Shock. It's a cyberpunk RPG made by a handful of folks, including myself, and as the content director and lead writer of this game. And coming out sometime in the near future. All the kind of politics that I speak of on these streams is the same sort of thing that's in this game. The main character is a illegal immigrant escapee from a United States concentration camp, or one of the prisons for the little kids in cages. Except you're not really a kid in this game. But it is a game that is definitely political in the same ways that I am. And one of the major missions is called Universal Death Care. My favorite mission. Where you try to survive American-style capitalist healthcare. And this game is coming out sometime in the near future, although I'm not sure exactly when. You can join the Discord if you want to find out more about that. And you can follow this Terminus Cyberstar Twitter account. And of course, thanks again to all these people on the list here. I'm not going to read it all. My voice is, I feel it going. So thanks to all these people for your ongoing support at Silver Spook. Of Silver Spook Games and Silver Spook Cooperative, Silver Spook Hui. Massively appreciated. Yeah, anyways, I'm just gonna leave it up there for a second while I close all the tabs. I have so many tabs open right now. I have like 12 Fast 9, Binti, Dune, Star Wars. I've got like every movie I've ever talked about this entire year. He's opening the tab. Starship Troopers, StarCraft, Star Wars. Close all these tabs while I give people another minute to look at that. So, yeah. Anyways, until next time, keep your mirror shades polished. Be excellent to each other. You know, try to undo your, interrogate. It's really it's an internal process. A lot of it that hope they will one day manifest externally. Interrogate the light side messiah in yourself. That if you speak English, you've got some amount of it already. Everyone, even it doesn't matter what skin color you are, or even where you're from. So, and until next time, keep your mirror shades polished. Be excellent to each other. I'll be streaming possibly some Neofeud 2 sneak peeks later on. I'm going to be releasing an album as well sometime in the very near future, in the next 2 days.